I think if you want to work in an NGO, there's a very wrong concept that you'll not make money. I think there's a lot of money.
मैले यसो लाइक सोच्दाखेरि चाहिँ माइन्डमा चाहिँ आएको थियो सोध्ने चाहिँ सोचिरहेको थिएँ क्या लाइक धेरै पैसा त कमाउँदैन होला भनेर माइन्डमा सोध्न चाहिँ खोजिरहेको
If
थिएँ
you work in very top NGOs, it's pretty normal for you to get like 2 to 3 lakh a salary. You can work as a consultant as well in many cases. But that again comes from skills and experience in general. No one's going to just give you
कति
that
त्यो
money.
2-3 लाखसम्म पनि कमाउन सकिन्छ
सकिन्छ if you have enough experience, you have
Experience,
enough skills,
knowledge-हरु,
छ भने-
skills भयो
skills
भने।
छ भनेदेखि, right? अहिले कहाँ रिस्क लिने लाइक ब्याचलर सक्का काम गर अलिकति पैसा कमा अनि त्यसपछि पछि गएर काम गर लाइक प्लानिङ इज भेरी इम्पोर्टेन्ट तर नन एक्सन प्लानिङ भनेको चाहिँ यो थिङ्किङ यो गर्छु एन्ड देन एट द एन्ड अफ द डे यु डोन्ट रियली डु एनिथिङ
साँच्ची 3-4 वर्ष भइसक्यो हुन्छ
Exactly.
5 वर्ष 3 वर्ष बितिसक्यो हुन्छ क्या
एक्ज्याक्टली लाइक दे लाइक म 21 भइसक्यो म बुढो भइसकेँ
त्यही
आई जस्ट पास 12 एक वर्ष ग्याप लियो भने ला एक वर्ष ग्याप भयो मेरो साथीहरू
2
वहाँ
वर्ष
पुगिसक्यो।
ग्याप भयो त्यही
Right,
यस्तो।
you constant culture of comparison with each other in terms of like मैले गरिनँ भने कसले गर्छ त्यसले त त्यस्तो गरिसक्यो मैले के गर्ने and then parents don't help it either they're like त्यसको like my parents still do it to me it's like त्यसको छोराहरू त बाहिर गएर like अस्ट्रेलिया गएर त्यत्रो पैसा कमाएर पठाएर तैँले for me currently I'm living my dream life because I'm in this field
मल्टिटास्किङ त लाइक हजुरले गर्नु जस्तो लाग्यो मलाई त्यसको लागि लाइक हजुरको त अनि भन्नु प्रोफाइलमा नि
दुई तिनवटा कुरा चाहिँ गरेर आउँछु
प्रोफाइलमा पनि छ भन्नु खोजेको मैले चाहिँ
it's a lot of hard work a lot of luck involved त्यसमा साउन्ड आइरहेछ
साउन्ड आइरहेको छ साउन्ड एउटाबाट आउने होइन हाम्रो स्टार्टिङ चाहिँ भइसक्यो स्टार्टिङ लाइक नर्मल
okay
आज हामी आज सरी रवि दाईको हामी स्टोरी सुन्नेछौँ है
okay I don't know how much of story is there but sure
रवि दाई अलिकति लाउड बोलिदिनु होइन नर्मल तरिकाले होइन त्यो अप्ठ्यारो मान्नु पर्दैन के गर्नु आफ्नो लोकेसन छैन होइन यो हामी
it's completely fine I was thinking maybe if you want to do a setup मेरो office is not this pretty तर if you want to use it feel free to do so भन्छु म चाहिँ basically हाम्रो mostly schools-हरुमा काम हुन्छ and even though I have a team of somewhere around 45 to 47 अहिले most of them are working on field अनि office दिउँसोको टाइममा mostly खाली नै हुन्छ कि 11 to 3 को बिचमा so if you want to do your own recording standard use the place feel free to do so
थ्याङ्क यू त्यो यति भनिदिनु भयो पनि ठुलो कुरा हो नि त्यो रवि दाई अब हजुरको लाइक अब त्यही हो हाम्रो पोडकास्ट कन्सेप्ट स्टोरी सेयर गर्ने होइन
okay
एकदम थ्याङ्क यू सो मच फर्स्ट अफ अल यहाँ यति परसम्म सो गेस्टहरूलाई भनिदिउँ होइन हाम्रो रवि दाई कन्फ्युज भएर चाहिँ अर्को रेस्टुरेन्टमा पुग्नु भएको थियो है
एउटा मात्र छ दुईटा रहेछ सुँगुर
र होइन नि यसको त अझ अर्को पनि ब्रान्च छ जस्तो लाग्यो मलाई
छ अरू पनि होला है
अरू पनि छ
probably किन दुईटा मात्र त छैन होला त्यसो भए फ्रेन्चाइजिङ रहेछ which was interesting.
फ्रेन्चाइजिङ त्यही हो लाइक त्यही हो हजुरको स्टोरी सुनिदिनु न त लाइक हजुर चाहिँ अहिले के गर्दै हुन्छ रिसेन्टली चाहिँ लाइक सुरुमा हजुरको बारेमा भनिदिनु न थोरै के छ लाइक यसो हल्का
So there are a lot of things तिमीले भने जस्तै हामीले अगाडि कुरा गर्दै थियौँ
हजुर
I also have मलाई नि धेरै कुरामा इन्ट्रेस्ट लाग्छ क्या एकैचोटि I think if I have to justify म को अहिलेको current statusमा I like to solve problems एउटा अनि other than that I love teaching so apart from the NGO that I currently run which is not my NGO I'm sort of working in it it's a very complicated structure that it's like my own baby that apart from that I also try and teach public speaking debating to a certain extent to kids who want to learn so at a certain point in time I'm मेरो first full-time job चाहिँ it's Fun Play Learn Hasdai Kheldai Age भन्ने छ it's an organization that is trying to help children learn through games so all we do is all of my teammates we work on how to produce the best games that can inspire a child's curiosity and can do a bunch of different things in schools in general so the concept comes from an idea कि धेरै जस्तो केसेसहरूमा चाहिँ हाम्रो स्ट्यान्डर्ड एजुकेसन करिकुलम चाहिँ कसरी डिजाइन छ भन्दाखेरि बच्चाहरूलाई चाहिँ क्लासरुममा टक्क एउटा लाइनमा राखेर सिकाउनुपर्छ उनीहरूलाई इन्फर्मेसन दिनुपर्छ एन्ड देन दे विल लर्न भन्ने कुरा हो
लाइक हजुरको चाहिँ एनजिओमा चाहिँ वर्क गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ
या अहिले सो फुल टाइम जब चाहिँ त्यही नै
एनजिओ अनि अरू पनि एक्सप्लोर गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ
या
योभन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ के गर्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो नि त योभन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ
ए ओके So apart from this, I think before COVID, that's when my life sort of completely shifted and took a completely different turn. I'm an engineering graduate. Also
engineering.
Yeah.
कम्प्लिटेड गरेर फेरि अर्को पनि कोर्स गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ
Yeah, I'm studying MBA, त्यो पनि non-profit may. It's one of the singular courses that King's provides. जुन चाहिँ अरू ठाउँमा चाहिँ छैन, लाइक बाहिर चाहिँ छ, बट नेपालमा चाहिँ इट्स जस्ट द्याट. एउटा प्राइमेरी रिजन भयो चाहिँ कोभिडको टाइममा आई वाज जस्ट त्यो कोभिडको फर्स्ट लकडाउनको बेलामा चाहिँ आई गट माई रिजल्ट्स. अनि त्यो रिजल्ट आउने बित्तिकै वी वेन्ट इन टु लकडाउन. इफ थिङ्स वर अ बिट डिफरेन्ट आई वुड probably be अहिले stuck in a 9 to 5 somewhere, banging my head against the wall, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. Probably a standard engineering ki kaam garera hunthyo hola because family pressure would have been there. But because COVID happened, to a point in time, I really got a chance to explore who I am, all of that. So engineering sakyo. I didn't want to pursue it. I was already depressed, a lot of very bad negative mental state. That after I did that, I had the freedom to sort of do things that I wanted. And at that point in time, I started to work in a few different clubs, organizations. I started to do a lot of public speaking that time, all of it online. Run like a public speaking platform called Smart Club, which is like a 17, 18-year-old platform. Not that I came up with it. It was something that I had to handle. Apart from that, I also worked in an organization called Debate Network Nepal, DNN भन्ने.
Like तपाईले public speaking मै धेरै टाइम दिनु भएको?
Yeah, so the first at least a year and a half of COVID was me practically working in that. After that I started training, तर त्यसमा धेरै फोकस चाहिँ गरिन. मेरो फोकस more starting my start from public speaking and debating.
त्यो गीत चाहिँ अफ गर्दिन ल.
Initially I started off with public speaking. That was my primary motive. That somehow I fell in love with just solving problems. So at the time when I was helping run these organizations, I had a good team. But at the same time, these organizations were struggling to the point that they were almost about to close down, either not having funds or people or interest in it because everyone was in lockdown. No one wanted to do online public speaking. It was a very difficult phase. Until phase I didn't have any experience in leadership. I was the oldest figure in a sense, like bhakhar batch sakako the. Everyone who sort of works within these clubs and organizations has like +2 pass. So because of my age, maturity, whatever it might be, everyone thought, oh, okay, handle this. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll figure it out. And I remember at some point in time, I was handling 5-6 different things within the same organization. Finance pani afe, communication afe, funding raise got afe, like operations afe. And it was stressful, very difficult, but I also got to learn a bunch of different things that I wouldn't have been able to learn otherwise. So त्यो टाइममा चाहिँ I started off that, but went into more managerial positions. I practically did like 2 years of volunteering with no money because I was really loving it. Like the work that I was doing, regardless of whether it was stressful and all of that, I really enjoyed it. And while I was doing that, I was reaching to a phase where I was almost bored because everything was starting to get repetitive. I thought I was not learning much. And I got introduced to this organization, Hasdai Kheldai, from Samay himself. Initially, the organization was sort of run by Karkhana Samuha, if you know what that is.
Like, यो हजुरको हाँस्दै खेल्दै हैन? Like यो हजुर चाहिँ के भन्नु हाँस्दै खेल्दैको बारेमा चाहिँ?
So हाँस्दै खेल्दै चाहिँ first my initiation हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ I was not there. So March मा चाहिँ there was a different team working on it. The funder, whoever is अहिले funding us अहिले, he was primarily involved with Sakar Dai. He doesn't like to be in media, so I'm going to try and speak very less of him. Tara, he's also co-founder of Karkhana. Karkhana, if you don't know, it's a...
टन्नै रहेछ नि त हैन?
Yeah.
हजुरको त्यहीबाट कारखाना चाहिँ हाम्रो समय दाइ पनि हुन्छ त्यसमा हैन?
Yeah, he was, I think अहिले पनि involved छ होला, but I know at this point he's not full time involved. पहिला चाहिँ I know he looked at a lot of product management and coming up with product design. He was an excellent by what I heard from them. So he worked in that primarily, and I think he has sort of transitioned into your more human resources and consultancy, Mirai Global and all of that. But again, he was the reason for why I got introduced into this project in the first place.
सही लाइक त्यहाँको चाहिँ हजुरको चाहिँ हजुर अहिले चाहिँ लाइक त्यसमा गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ हैन? अहिले चाहिँ हाँस्दै खेल्दैमा. हाँस्दै खेल्दैमा एज हजुर चाहिँ खासमा त्यहाँ चाहिँ केमा हुनुहुन्छ नि लाइक पोस्ट चाहिँ हजुरको
So it's a bit weird. I don't exactly have a post, but I handle everything there. So we have a very
सुन्नु है आज मलाई थाहा नभएको कुराहरू जान्दिउँ
yeah,
होइन
okay, sure.
मलाई चाहिँ लाइक यो होइन सुरुमा चाहिँ नर्मली भन्नु पर्दा होइन मलाई होइन त्यो एनजिओको बारेमा त्यस्तो नलेजै छैन अनेस्टली भन्नु पर्दाखेरि
Okay, okay, okay.
लाइक हजुर फर्स्टमा कम्फर्टेबल भएर बस्दिनु न हजुर कम्फर्टेबल छैन कि जस्तो फिल भइरहेको
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
ल ओके त्यसो भए होइन हजुर यो माइकलाई चाहिँ होइन अलिकति फेसनिर चाहिँ यहाँ मिलाउनु यो अलिकति फ्लेक्सिबल छ होइन जस एकछिन रोक्नु ल म मिलाइदिन्छु होइन
Okay. I'm just afraid I'm gonna break something.
अहिले केही छैन ल हजुर चाहिँ कम्फर्टेबल हुनु पऱ्यो मेन कुरा
Okay. La. Okay, this helps.
कसरी बस्दा कम्फर्टेबल हजुर छैन जस्तो लागिरहेको छ
Okay.
त्यहाँबाट
La. I think it was the pillow was pushing against me. Okay.
होला, होला, होला।
Oh no, I'm good. No, I'm good.
होइन आज होइन त्यही हो अब खासमा मलाई एनजिओको बारेमा त्यस्तो विधि नलेजै छैन क्या
Okay.
फर्स्टको एनजिओको बारेमा लाइक खासमा एनजिओ भनेको चाहिँ यो नन के हो खासमा चाहिँ
So there are few ways that you have to see an NGO. एउटा चाहिँ so first there are profit companies. Everyone knows about it. We're very familiar with it. NGOs को चाहिँ there are two types in Nepal. एउटा चाहिँ non-governmental organization मतलब that's the standard NGO that you keep hearing. त्यसको चाहिँ अलिकति modality different हुन्छ compared to what we are. We are called a profit not distributing company. So we are a non-profit.
लाइक प्रफिट चाहिँ
distribute हुँदैन. So we have no shareholders. So anyone is replaceable हाम्रो सिस्टममा चाहिँ लाइक प्राइभेट कम्पनीमा के हुन्छ राइट यु हेभ बोर्ड अफ डिरेक्टर्स यु हेभ सेयर होल्डर्स
लाइक यो चाहिँ सरकारले नै गर्ने हो
not really. So it is under those company act तर it's differentiated. I think company act मा हेर्ने हो भनेदेखि चाहिँ profit not distributing company is quite new. I'm not sure exactly, don't quote me on this, but probably it's somewhere around 2012 to 2016 को बिचमा आएको act हो यो चाहिँ for profit not distributing company भनेर मात्र. So NGOs हरू चाहिँ while they are very similar to us, they cannot raise funds by selling products. So कस्तो हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि non-profits हरूले चाहिँ जहिले पनि फन्ड चाहिँ जेनेरेट गर्नुपर्छ ग्रान्ट चाहिँ जेनेरेट गर्नुपर्छ. That's the only way that they can operate. They cannot sell product. Let's say if I have let's say I have a bunch of women working in an organization and I'm teaching them certain skills. Let's say I'm teaching them how to make masks. Non-profit organizations non-governmental organization NGOs are, let's say, they cannot sell it and raise funds.
लाइक फन्ड चाहिँ कसरी म्यानेज गर्ने
So they have to do it through funding sources. So
फन्डिङ लाइक बाहिरबाट मगाउने यस्तो लाइक सरकारले पनि गर्नुहुन्छ त
सरकारले नि मिल्छ सो पालिकाहरूले पनि दिन मिल्छ. You have to apply for international grants or local grants.
यो एनजिओ चाहिँ हाम्रो इन्डिभिजुअल पर्सनले नै खोल्ने हो खासमा
Yeah, but I think there needs to be some level of like 5 देखि 6 जना चाहिँ हुनुपर्छ बोर्डमा भन्ने
criteria. 5-6 जना चाहिँ मान्छे मिलेर चाहिँ खोल्नु मिल्छ.
So that would be a general sort of status.
त्यो हाम्रो पैसा चाहिँ कमाउँदैन है यो खोलेपछि चाहिँ एनजिओहरूले चाहिँ
एनजिओजहरूले चाहिँ कमाउँदैन. They are not allowed to earn money. त्यो चाहिँ उनीहरूलाई प्रोहिबिटेडै हुन्छ. Profit not distributing company चाहिँ we are allowed to earn money तर हामीले profit distribute गर्न चाहिँ मिल्दैन. So we can give that money away in salaries like operationsहरूमा खर्च गर्न मिल्छ. हाम्रो most of our like for my project, let's say we are taking a lot of materials in schools. हामीले materialsहरूमा खर्च गर्न मिल्यो. We can sort of say कि एउटा स्कुललाई गएर हामीलाई महिनाको 5,000 रुपियाँ देऊ. We are not doing that अहिले. तर we can tell them कि give us 5,000 a month. We'll charge you for the services that we are providing you. And then we will sort of invest all of that money into operations. So that will go into paying someone's salary, rent, operations cost, materialsहरू किन्नलाई and all of that.
सर्भिस चाहिँ फरक हुन्छ.
Yeah,
NGO.
Yeah, it depends on. So, have you ever heard about a concept called social enterprise?
Social enterprise.
So, it's a very new growing concept in Nepal, and I think if you have a bakery cafe, or there are probably others that are doing it as well. Anthropos भन्ने छ. So, they're not all non-profit organizations, but they sort of run on this model that say whatever they do impacts society in a positive way. हाम्रो चाहिँ डिरेक्सन नै इट्स अल इम्प्याक्ट तर फर प्रफिट अर्गनाइजेसन्सहरू पनि दे आर सोर्ट अफ स्टार्टिङ टु मुभ टुवर्ड्स यु हर्ड लट अबाउट प्रब्ली कर्पोरेट सोसल रेस्पोन्सिबिलिटी भनेर जुन चाहिँ ब्याङ्क्सहरूले गर्छ बट इट्स अ भेरी इन्ट्रेस्टिङ थिङ बिकज कम्पनीज गेट टु सेल देयर इम्प्याक्ट क्या टु पिपल बिकज इफ आई टेल यु कि we are selling all of like let's say so let's take an example of Anthropos. I'm not saying what they're doing is not good. They're doing something really amazing, right? But it's a lot better if I tell you ki buy this 3,500 rupees ko eyewear, which other companies do, right? But it's a lot better if I tell you, ki, buy this at 3,500, and a lot of portion of it is going to go to people who are suffering from cataract. Ani unharko surgery ko लागि kharcha huncha. So every time you're buying something, or their eyewears or their frames, you're contributing to something really, really good. And that appeals to people a lot. Kina bhanदाखेरि म किन अर्को ठाउँमा गएर चस्माको फ्रेम किन्नु when Anthropos is doing something really good, right? However, there is a cost to it. It's very expensive, but that cost is justified. Kina bhanदाखेरि you're doing it to something. So social enterprises are something that is coming up. Like some cafe, like some restaurants will do like, oh, we'll only hire people with disability. So we'll hire people who are deaf and we'll put them to work because no one else will give them jobs. We are creating our impact by putting them into work because aru कसैले hire गर्दैन. So that would be a social enterprise. Profit not distributing companies, like the kind of Hasdai Kheldai, and there are a bunch of others, like Debate Network Nepal is also an example. I worked for them. They get to sell their services. So for DNN, it would be selling their debate trainings, or tournaments in schools, for which they can raise funds. But the only difference between a private company and a profit not distributing company is that जुन profit बनाउँछ उनीहरूले त्यो shareholdersलाई जाँदैन, board of directorsहरूलाई जाँदैन. All of the board of directors in PNDC like mine are voluntarily there. There are disadvantages to that. But it's something that is, I would say, if I ever had to suggest anyone who wants to go into a non-profit sector and wants to start their own non-profit, I will tell them, start a PNDC rather than an NGO.
PNDC भनेको के?
So profit not distributing company. So that would be that would be a non-profit company that could actually sell their services. जुन चाहिँ मैले अघि डिस्क्राइब गरिरहेको थिएँ. किन भन्दाखेरि एनजिओजको रेस्ट्रिक्सन्स भनेको चाहिँ दे क्यान ओन्ली रेज फन्ड्स थ्रु ग्रान्ट्स ओर फन्ड्स अथवा गभर्मेन्ट अर्गनाइजेसन्सहरूमा गएर कुरा गर्नु पऱ्यो. एन्ड इफ यु नो एनिथिङ अबाउट नेपालको गभर्मेन्ट, इट्स भेरी डिफिकल्ट इफ यु डोन्ट ह्याभ नेटवर्क्स टु सोर्ट अफ टाइटन द नब अथवा ह्याभ नेटवर्क्स हु क्यान सोर्ट अफ get you through things, it gets very difficult. But PNDC, because they don't have to only rely on funding from external sources, they can also sell things. Just like a PNDC might think, okay, we're going to sell, like we are a profit not distributing company, we are here for children, but we want to sell our program to parents. So parents might come in, they might pay like 5,000 a month, मेरो बच्चालाई चाहिँ यो skillsहरू देऊ भनेर. And then apart from raising just the funds, I get to also raise money from parents, which is completely viable, and it's more sustainable in many ways because I have multiple avenues to get income rather than just grants and funds.
Like you, हजुरको चाहिँ यो भन्नाले एनजिओ जसले पनि खोल्न मिल्छ?
Yeah, जसले पनि खोल्न
त्यो क्राइटेरिया चाहिँ छैन यस्तो हुनुपर्छ केही? Like
there are I would say like I'm also not probably the best person to answer this question, but as far as I know, there are a lot of criteria to opening up non-profit organizations, especially profit not distributing companies. There has to be like Company Act ma jesa त्यसैको अनुसारले हुन्छ. I'm not like off the top of my head, I don't remember everything.
Like त्यो धेरै चाहिँ like त्यस्तो धेरै चाहिँ छैन. त्यस्तो धेरै क्राइटेरियाहरु लाइक यस्तो यस्तो गर्नुपर्ने कामहरु.
It's practically like setting up any private company, but I would say compared to a private company, non-profit companies or organizations, there's a lot of different barriers even after a company is registered or organization is registered. So the way that we have to get funds, the way that we have to sort of spend those funds are very, very restricted. For example, in my case, I'm getting a lot of funds from a US foundation, right? So what
like US बाट पाउनुहुन्छ हजुरले फन्ड चाहिँ बडी जस्तो?
All of our funds is currently from a single funder coming in from the US. So in my case, because it's a registered organization, I cannot just spend funds based on whatever they want to give me. So I might have like a funder willing to give me infinite amount of money, but I can spend that money quite easily in Nepal. The reason for that is SWC, Social Welfare Council, which monitors every profit not distributing company or non-profit organizations in general who are getting funds from the outside. So every time I have to spend money, even spending matra garnako लागि पनि, I have to talk to a palika जहाँ चाहिँ मैले त्यो project गरिरहेको छु. So let's say I'm trying to do मेरो project Hasdai Kheldai on 10 schools in Kathmandu. So what I have to then do is get to the Kathmandu Metropolitan, get a letter from them saying कि yes, this is our project. I have to get that letter to अनि यो project को budget चाहिँ यति हो भनेर छुट्याइन्छ उनीहरूले. I have to take that letter to Social Welfare Council. एकचोटिमा कहिले पनि अप्रुभ हुँदैन. They will always return you back. It's one of the standards that everyone knows exists. So, and they also know, they're like, थाहा छ तपाईँहरूले लास्ट टाइम पनि यही बजेट यही भनेर बुझाउनु भएको थियो तर यो कुराहरू चाहिँ मिलाएर लिएर आउनु. सो देयर इज अलवेज समथिङ रङ. फर्स्ट दिनमा कहिले पनि अप्रुभ हुँदैन. एन्ड देन आई हेभ टु त्यो अप्रुभ भइसकेपछि आई एक्चुली गेट द फन्ड्स फ्रम दि आउटसाइड एन्ड देन स्पेन्ड इट. सो इट्स अ भेरी लङ प्रोसेस.
लाइक प्रफिट चाहिँ आउँदैन है यो कामबाट. लाइक पैसा चाहिँ खोलेपछि हजुरले चाहिँ लाइक एनजिओ पहिलेदेखि नै खोल्ने प्लान गर्नुभएको थियो?
नट really, like
हजुर यो लाइक मैले रङ त बोलिनँ. लाइक हजुरकै एनजिओ हो यो एक हिसाबले?
Not really. I would say I'll not say it is my NGO. It's like it's my NGO in a sense. It's basically a part of me. But it was not founded by me or started by me. So it was someone else who did it, and it was sort of handed over to me. And there's like 47 others in the team who have the similar
like हजुरलाई handover चाहिँ अहिले चाहिँ हजुरको जिम्मामा छ
भनेपछि kind of me and a few others who are sort of leading it. There's my co-lead called Prokshini, Ilza भन्ने छ अर्को एकजना who is also co-leading with me. So they're like तीनजनाको co-lead. Other than that, I have plenty of other people who will feel just as same as like this is my NGO, which is one of the very truly amazing feeling. But the NGO is sort of structured in a way ki I would say at least my NGO, this current NGO, we're not like any typical NGO. So हाम्रो केसमा चाहिँ we're like a startup in a Silicon Valley. So हाम्रो structure, हाम्रो culture, the people that we're kind of trying to take in, it's a very flat structure.
Like हजुरले यो स्टार्टअप भन्नुभयो यो लाइक कसरी यसो एक्सप्लेन गर्न मिल्छ?
So yeah, basically हाम्रो चाहिँ it's very this organization is in a very unique state. That is, while you'll see other NGOs and even profit not distributing companies fighting to raise funds, we don't have to. It's a very interesting thing. So our way of working, it's very operationally focused. So the way that our funder has been very generous is in a sense he's putting a lot of money into a project that will hopefully work, but there's a high chance of failure as well. That's how startup works. So my funder has a Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur, similar background, so you can understand very high, insane, ambitious scaling targets. So I have to give you a bit of sense of where we are to give you an idea about why we are a startup and not an NGO in particular. So by the end of August, by this time, I think it's looking pretty difficult to reach that target. That we're trying to get to 30,000 children, not total, but every week. So
every week.
So we're trying to cycle through every school every once in a week. So एउटा स्कुलमा चाहिँ हामी हप्तामा एकचोटि जान्छ. I'll discuss like model and everything एकछिनमा. तर just to give you a sense, अहिलेको लागि we are targeting, we are reaching about 6,280 kids every week. So that's our sort of the amount of children that we are.
Like हजुर स्कुलमा जानुहुन्छ?
Yeah. So currently
सबै स्कुलमा लगभग भन्नाले सबै लाइक भ्याली भित्र बाहिर पनि?
We haven't figured out भ्याली बाहिर कसरी गर्ने. तर yeah, भ्याली भित्र चाहिँ there are few 6-6वटा the clusters छ. There's a team working in Kirtipur Kalanki. There's a team working in Mahalakshmi अलिकति लुबुतिर. There's a team working in your Lalitpur area. There's a team working in Koteshwar Baneshwar area, and then there's a team working in Basantapur. So about 6 clusters in general. So Chapagaonma अर्को एउटा cluster छ. So about 6वटा clusterमा चाहिँ there are somewhere around 65 schools that we're working in. That's 12 schools every day for 5 days a week from Monday to Friday. That's running by about 45-47 team people, like 47 जना अतिको टिमले चाहिँ ह्यान्डल गरिरहेको छ अहिलेको लागि.
लाइक मेम्बर टन्नै धेरै रहेछ है तर
it's still we're still quite low in terms of the target that we want to reach. So if we do reach scale, that is 30,000 children per week, that would be somewhere around 100 team members with 200 schools. So that's our target for August. But hopefully we'll reach there. It's still right now it's seeming, because we made a few mistakes in terms of anticipating a lot of problems, hopefully we'll get there. If not, then it'll extend it by about a month or so. So we are a startup because the way that our funds are structured is the amount of funding increases the more number of children we reach, and with quality. So we are very hyper focused on how to do quality programs. I would not say we are very, very good. There is we are just at that baseline of where schools will not kick us out. We're good enough. there's a lot for us to go in terms of quality. In terms of scale, we have to keep the sort of ceiling under 26 rupees per child per week. That's 20 cents on a dollar per child per week. So right now, if you're reaching 6,280 children per week, that is 6,280 into 26 rupees basically. That's our weekly budget. And we scale up.
हजुरको यो हाँस्दै खेल्दैको मेन सर्भिस चाहिँ के हो नि लाइक मैले यो चाहिँ क्लियरली बुझेको छैन सरी यसको लागि चाहिँ होइन हजुर
सो हाम्रो मेन काम भनेको चाहिँ दुईटा छ एउटा
हजुरले भन्नु त भयो लाइक मैले क्लियरली चाहिँ बुझिनँ क्या डिटेलमा चाहिँ
we basically go into schools. We will tell to a school, hey look, this is a free program we are doing. We'll bring all of the materials. The only thing that you have to give us is we'll bring a lot of volunteers and team members, 6 to 7, give us food. You'll not have to pay for anything. It's not a freemium thing. Like, हामीले पछि गएर तपाईलाई चाहिँ यो पैसा दिनु भनेर भन्दैनौँ. But we will take 2 of your classes. We'll bring out primary level को बच्चाहरू, that is grade 1 देखि 5 सम्मको kids, and then we'll play games with them. And the games are designed in such a way that they will have a lot of fun. They will love it. But at the same time, they'll also learn a few things. So we do a lot of things with very low cost equipment. Like if you think about, let's say, having, everyone has done this, paper cup, putting a thread to it, and making a telephone out of it. So we do things like that, right? We will do things like estimation. We'll do pebbles. So we'll have a bunch of pebbles. We'll say, hey kid, like के छ होला यसमा, and we'll make them guess, and they will be like, यस्तो यस्तो छ, ढुङ्गा छ भन्छ, okay fine good, now can you guess मेरो हातमा कतिवटा छ, and they'll start counting and like no count कतिवटा छ. So we're trying to get them into this mindset of thinking, curiosity, and they will say, some will say there will be 50 of this here, but some child will be like, oh there are 10. They'll be way off, like 5 भन्छ हैन, and they will like, okay Allah अब count गर. So they are trying to get very quick feedback, right? So they'll count कति रहेछ त 50 रहेछ. So next time when you do it, the next time when you do it, and because we are cycling through the school, that is every week गइराछौँ नि त, अनि we are not just doing very short interventions. The 30,000 per week गर्नुको पछाडि reason छ. A lot of the time single time intervention गर्दा, you have probably felt it as well, एउटा मोटिभेसनल भिडियो हेरेर युट्युबमा खतरा लाग्छ, अनि त्यसपछि the entire thing shoot and then it just dies down, right?
मोटिभेसन भिडियो काम पनि छैन.
Exactly. It's the same thing with children. Like you do a 1 hour session, गएर एउटा खतरा स्टोरी टेलिङको सेसन गर्दै बच्चालाई रमाइलो भयो एक दिन, भोलिपल्टदेखि त्यसको भ्याल्यु के त. So time चाहिँ हाम्रो लागि अति नै इम्पोर्टेन्ट छ. So we keep doing it. Some of the schools that we have been running in Mahalakshmi जहाँ चाहिँ हामी weekly गइरहेछौँ, we have been there for 9 months. हामीले एउटा बच्चा grade 1 देखि grade 2 सम्म गएको देखिसकेका छौँ क्या. अनि it's such a rewarding feeling when like every time we go in, children will grab hold of you अनि निस्किन पनि दिँदैनन् क्या. That's how happy they are क्या. अनि the teachersहरू पनि like जुन दिन चाहिँ हामी आउने, because it's very consistent. Like if you go to a school on Monday, we go to the school on Monday every week like clockwork. अनि बच्चाहरूले एन्टिसिपेट गर्छ क्या त्यो कुराहरू, आज चाहिँ दाइ दिदी आउनुहुन्छ कि नयाँ खेलाउनुहुन्छ. लाइक इट्स नट द्याट दे आर थिङ्किङ केही सिकिरहेको छु, हाम्रो लागि चाहिँ त्यो लर्निङको पार्ट पनि छ, तर बच्चाहरूको लागि चाहिँ आजै रमाइलो हुन्छ भन्ने हुन्छ.
बच्चाहरूको लागि त रमाइलो हुन्छ नि.
सो दे आर फ्यु कार्डिनल रुल्स. लाइक एउटा चाहिँ बच्चाहरूलाई रमाइलो हुनु पऱ्यो, द्याट्स बेस्ट. लाइक वी डोन्ट डु स्कुल सेसन्स. हाम्रो सेसन्सहरू लाइक हामी बोलेर गर्न खोज्दैन सकेसम्म. विल ट्राई एन्ड गेट देम ह्यान्ड्स अन एक्टिभिटी. दे विल प्ले विथ डो द्याट वी मेक फ्रम, अति नै लो कस्ट छ हाम्रो इक्विपमेन्ट्सहरू चाहिँ. सो डो, पिठो, फुड कलर, वाटर, पेपर कप्स, थ्रेड्स, newspaper, cardboard, those are like regular materials. We don't take Arduino. We don't take like very fancy equipments to schools. Right? We might do that every once in a while, but never on a daily basis, because the reason are twofold. The child shouldn't feel ki, oh, yo to maile garna sakdina. Because whenever we do a very simple thing like a rubber and a paper rocket bhaन्छौँ नि हामी, त्यो rocketलाई rocket जस्तो बनायो एउटा, अनि we'll tell them रकेट उड्छ त, it's like कसरी उड्छ, अनि उड्छ भन्छ, अनि त्यसपछि यस्तरी फालिदिन्छौँ पेपर, अनि त्यसपछि उड्यो त भन्दाखेरि उडेन, अनि त्यसपछि we'll cut a hole in the rocket, we'll put a rubber, and that gives them a sense of elasticity. We're not teaching them what elasticity is. We don't care. So what we'll do is like, अब उड्छ, and it'll go far. And we'll tell them, okay, your paper ma कतिवटा sides छ, they'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll never tell them it's a rectangle, because it's more important to understand the concept of shapes rather than saying what's a rectangle, what's a triangle. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing as I will say a good example would be to it's pretty useless to teach a child about solar system. The reason the reason I get a lot of exciting comments. The reason for that is in a child's mind who is just studying in grade 1, 2 or 3, who doesn't have an access to a lot of media, जहाँ चाहिँ उसले त्यो च्याप्पै देख्न सक्दैन, he doesn't have an idea about what a Mercury is, what a Saturn
तर
is.
1 2 क्लासले पढाउँछ र है
I think त्यो
अलिकति
importance
6 7 देखि पढाउँछ क्या हैन
त्यो पनि हो, but I think it's just to get a sense of like what's actual learning and what's rote memorization. So कुनै पनि बच्चाले त्यो solar system पढिरहेछ, even 7 8 9 I can claim the same thing. That person never gets to see up in the sky and see where the planets are, okay? Right? So mentally it doesn't make sense because it's not a hands-on experience. But it's equally as important to try and help them understand the phases of the moon. The reason for that is a child can go up to his stair or terrace or wherever it is. He can see the phases of the moon change every day. Okay? That's a lot more valuable for them because now they have something to be curious about. They can look up into the stars and they can be like, "Hey, आज यो छ कसरी भयो?" Like how is it happening? And they can go, oh, lightly certain ठाउँबाट हानेर हान्दाखेरि चाहिँ shapes बिस्तारै change हुँदो रहेछ. Oh, it has a 30-day cycle. Oh, then it reverts back to a full moon. Moon ko चाहिँ आफ्नो light. So you're getting more curious about what things. But if you're teaching a child about Mercury, there's very less chance that a child will be like,
बुझे पनि नबुझे पनि बुझे
there's
भन्ने
understanding तर there's no, it's the same way that if I tell you, okay, if I ask you, when I say a number 4, what do you remember?
4 नै याद आउँछ
Right? You never relate that with quantity.
रिलेट हुँदैन लाइक हामी घोकेको छौँ
Oh, exactly. Ani, whenever that gets more and more and more, we don't understand the kuraharu ke, okay? But imagine, this is what we do. We'll tell them, okay, we'll put a sequence. Euta pebble, duita pebble, tinta pebble. They'll count 1, 2, 3. Aba ke aउँछ 4. So they're understanding quantity and numbers. It gets very valuable over a period of time. जुन बेला चाहिँ उनीहरूले estimate गर्नुपर्छ. Or they have to, like, children find it very difficult. Like they can understand a number 2, तर उनीहरूलाई दुईटा मात्र like pebbles लगाएर दियो भनेदेखि they get very confused क्या, because they have never really learned how to relate quantity to numbers. Because हामीलाई जहिले squiggly linesहरू सिकाउँछ, right? Geometry is same thing. We are taught a lot of 3D diagrams पछि गएर geometry मा, but we never understand the कसरी त्यो काम गर्छ भनेर. So to counteract that, what we do is we'll take a bunch of newspapers, we'll tell the child, can you make it into a roll? So you'll have a paper just like this, without anything else, it's just a paper, right? But if you roll this, you're fundamentally changing the property of this, right? So it becomes a bit harder. And if you take a bunch of rolled paper, you're basically making a rod. If you do this out of a newspaper, it's quite sturdy. And then you can make 3D structures out of it. So you can make like a pyramid. You can add another pyramid. You can make a dome out of it. So children are having a very hands-on experience with what are shapes. Instead of learning, oh, this is 3-dimensional shapes, and this is how perspective works, they're actually getting an understanding. Oh, okay, this is what a triangle is. This is what a pyramid is. And we'll never tell them, oh, yo chai pyramid ho, yalai chai यसरी भन्नुपर्छ. No, we'll leave them be, right? We'll leave them with curiosity. We will try and explain to them. अस्ति भर्खर स्कुलको एउटा उयो हो, they're like, माथि के छ भन्दाखेरि आकाश छ भन्छ. त्योभन्दा माथि के छ भने अर्को अर्थ छ अरे क्या. अनि
बच्चाले भनेको यो चाहिँ
so these are like grade 1 को बच्चाहरू. I'll be like, माथि त चन्द्रमा हुन्छ नि त होइन, अनि भन्छ तिमी त अर्थ हुन्छ भने होइन. They get confused क्या. That's what we want to make them. We want to make them confused because हाम्रो entire education system is focused on an idea कि बच्चाहरूलाई सिकाउनु पर्छ. It's completely flawed. The reason for that is, it's not that is not important. That's one aspect of it. But हामीले कहिले पनि बच्चाहरूलाई क्वेसन गर्नुपर्छ. तिमीहरूले इन्भाइरोमेन्टमा हेरेर यो कुराहरूलाई सोध्नुपर्छ. Like it's very simple to say कि it's very difficult, right? If I tell you what's the height त्यहाँदेखि त्यहाँसम्म,
डिफिकल्ट नै छ नि.
डिफिकल्ट छ नि.
म भने आइडिया नै आउँदैन नि.
आइडिया नै आउँदैन. But imagine if as a child you were taught in a very different way. So this is what we do with actual children. We'll take a measuring tape जुन चाहिँ त्यो टेलर्सहरुकोमा हुन्छ. We'll tell them, okay, so यहाँ 1 देखि 60 छ, त्यो कति होला? They don't understand centimeter meter yet, but they'll be like 10 होला. Horribly wrong. It's the same thing with the pebble experiment, right? Horribly wrong. So we'll tell them, साँच्चै के छ त? So we'll make them guess first. And we'll tell them, okay, तिम्रो साथीको height नाप त. So they'll go up and down. कति होला? So they'll get 10, they'll nap it, and the naps on this it will come 40. So like, कति रहेछ त 40 रहेछ. Okay, अब हातको यहाँदेखि यहाँसम्म नाप. Now go and त्यो नाप कति हुन्छ होला. So we'll make them guess and then we'll make them do it. And over a period of time, the hope is that as you keep doing it more and more and more, they will understand and they'll say, त्यो 60 रहेछ. Because all of this is estimation, is feedback नि त. The reason for why we cannot tell that is 2 or 3 meters is because हामीलाई सानैदेखि नै understanding of length अति नै linear छ क्या.
Like fix गरिदिन्छ
like 20 meters. Exactly, 20 meters, 30 meters. They're not learning to fail. They'll be like, अलिकति ठुलो भएको बच्चालाई यो क्वेसन सोध्दा एन्सरै गर्न सक्दैन क्या. The reason is mistake भन्छ, as if like throughout their life they're being graded, right? The fear of failing, the fear of like messing things up, that is what we're trying to inspire. We're telling a child, if they're messing up to, जस्तै कि पेपर रकेट बनाउँदाखेरि त्यो फोल्ड गर्न नि गाह्रो हुन्छ है कति बच्चाहरूलाई. It's very normal. Tell them, ठिक छ, मिलाएर गर. We'll give them the opportunity. We'll tell them, तिमीलाई आएन, तिम्रो साथीलाई आयो, साथीले हेल्प गर. Because children learn to love from their friends. We try to get down to their eye level. This is a very simple technique. If you are standing up like a teacher, बच्चाहरू अति नै डराउँछन् क्या. They will never take you as a दाइ or a दिदी. But हाम्रो responsibility हाँस्दै खेल्दैमा जोसुकै volunteers आओस्, team members आओस्, we try to be with the children. We try to be dais and didis rather than teachers. And even though उनीहरूले सर भने नि दाइ भन् ल. So त्यो changing of hierarchy through language त्यो पनि छ. अनि we'll try and get very close to the eyesight of a child whenever we are interacting with them. Instead of like अगाडि माथि मात्र बसेर त्यसको नि फङ्सन छ नभएको होइन. तर we try and get to the level of the child. We try and engage with them, work with them, help them, support them. And like we try and get them to work in groups rather than individually. We'll tell them, तिम्रो साथीलाई आइरहेको छ नि सिकाइदिनु. And children love this. Like the feeling that मलाई चाहिँ आउँछ यसलाई आउँदैन मलाई सिकाउँछ. It's a very wonderful feeling, right? Other things that we do is like we act like stupid. We'll be like, so we do this thing like kite गर्छौँ होइन. So it's basically broomstick को त्यो डाँठोलाई चाहिँ माछेर and we'll make kite with them and we'll be like, भाँच्यो यार मलाई बनाउनै आएन, हेल्प गर्दैन. So we'll tell a child to sort of lead. The Pebble-को गेममा what I would do if a child is really engaging is I'll do a bunch of sequence and series. So I'll do 2, 4 अब के आउँछ 6, 3, 6 कति आउँछ अब 9, and I'll do that and I'll be like ल मलाई अब एउटा दे, right? So now the child is empowered to say कि म यो ठुलो मान्छेलाई म सिकाइरहेको छु. There was a very interesting thing that I did एउटा चापागाउँको एउटा स्कुलमा. I was with this child, very young. अनि कुरा गरिरहेको थिएँ अनि I was asking him घरमा के गेम खेल्छौ, कसरी गर्छौ, हाम्रो के अरे दाइ दिदीहरू आउँदै हुन्छ, कस्तो लागिरहेछ, रमाइलो भइरहेछ. It's like रमाइलो भइरहेछ, घरमा गएर नि खेल्छौ यो गेम. Because that's another important thing, that we want children to engage with the games that we are playing even at home. अनि कुनै कुनै गेम्सहरू गर्छ, कुनै कुनै गर्दैन. बट he'll be like त्यो न्युजपेपरवाला गेममा चाहिँ मैले सोधेको थिएँ अनि होइन मम्मीले पिट्नुहुन्छ मलाई होइन. बिकज इट्स अ भेरी लो इकोनोमिक ब्याकग्राउन्डबाट आएको चिल्ड्रेनहरू. Parents don't understand what play is in education, and they will feel कि बच्चाले खेलेर बिग्रिन्छ. So they will not let them tear a piece of paper and do it. At least internally kind of want it, but hopefully a child doesn't get beaten by that. So we're trying to do that. अनि बच्चालाई चाहिँ के खेल्छौ अरू भनेर छुइडुम खेल्छौँ, लुकामारी खेल्छौँ भने अरू के खेल्छौ भनेर सोधे. जस्तै गट्टा खेल्छु भनेको. सो गट्टा इज बेसिकली लाइक त्यो पेबल जस्तो फालेर नि समात्नु. So it's a reflex game, right? अनि so what ends up happening is like हो गट्टा खेल्छौ कसरी खेल्छ भने he pulls into his hand in the pocket, he takes out like 5-6वटा ढुङ्गा बोकेर हिँडेर चाहिँ क्या दिनैभरि होइन उसको स्कुलमा. अनि he takes it out and he's like वाउ मलाई खेल्न सिका भने मैले राख्यो मलाई अनि सिकाएँ यसरी यसरी खेल्ने भनेर. He gathered up like 5 to 6 children त्यति बेला. It was such a wonderful feeling because that kid is trying so hard to teach an adult 26-year-old how to play that game. क्या उसले सिकाइरहेछ क्या मलाई. And children absolutely love that feeling, to be empowered, to
बच्चालाई मजा आउँछ.
Exactly, त्यो feeling and sense of empowerment. Because हाम्रो idea in Nepal
like हजुरको चाहिँ मेन भनेको त्यो बच्चाहरूलाई नै भन्नाले त्यो एउटा भनौँ न हेल्प गर्ने नै हो मेन चाहिँ.
So one would be curiosity. It's very important for us. Like first, what questions we are asking, are we confusing them enough? Another, what kind of questions are they asking us? So they will be like, so if we are playing paper rocket, this method rubbers or elasticities. So if they're coming up to us and asking us, ta yo 2टा रबरको ठाउँमा 3टा हाल्यो भने चाहिँ के हुन्छ त? those are very good questions to us. We'll be like, okay, let's say we'll tell them, तिमीलाई त्यो पेपर रकेटमा चाहिँ जे चाहिँ तिमीलाई स्पेसमा पुऱ्याउन मन छ त्यो कुरा ड्र गर. So they might be like, they draw an apple and they'll be like, apple स्पेसमा गयो भने के हुन्छ होला? It's a very interesting question, right?
त्यही बवाल हुन्छ नि, क्वेसन सोध्दै गयो भने झन्.
So it's questioning, that's curiosity.
रमाइलो पनि हुन्छ एउटा.
Exactly.
बच्चालाई पनि अनि सोध्ने ठुलै मान्छे रमाइलो हुन्छ एउटा.
I'm assuming you are now thinking like apple like के हुन्छ. Even I don't have an idea.
त्यही आइडिया छैन त्यही.
हेर्न मन लाग्छ नि त. So it sticks in your head. Yeah, this is what we are trying to do. The next thing is then so the बच्चाहरूलाई त्यो एउटा curiosity अर्को basic love, compassion for them, because I think that's missing. Not that their parents don't love them, but we have grown up in Nepali household families. We know how it is like. Our disconnection with family kati धेरै हुन्छ. Plus these are children growing up in very difficult backgrounds. Hasdai Kheldai is mostly focused on government schools or lower tier private schools. So these are children who don't have all of the resources. Their parents are working more than their hands, like because khanu paryo, baasnu paryo and all of that. What we're trying to do is at least to haptama ek din jun bela hami jaन्छौं, they get a lot of love, a lot of compassion from the team member and volunteers. That is why we do this. So that would be the second thing. Arko एउटा multi-pronged approach भनेको चाहिँ, so that's children, that is our focus. Just as important are the volunteers that work with us. So team members that work with us. We have made it, because the salary ranges that we provide, which is not much, and it's not a salary, it's an allowance for them volunteering so that they can sustain themselves at least to a certain extent.
Salary चाहिँ भन्नाले मैले बुझिन एक्ज्याक्टली. यो अलाउन्स दिनुहुन्छ भन्नुभएको.
Paid salary staff is very low. They're probably 5 or 6 matra. Everyone
5-6 कति भन्नाले भन्ने मिल्छ?
Sure, we're pretty open with our finances. So मेरो केसमा, I'm the oldest member. I have somewhere around 40. My co-lead has somewhere around that. Another co-lead who joined in a bit late has somewhere around 32, and everyone else is sort of 15. And this, other than that, it's not a hierarchy-based system at all. Salary.
Like
it's more about. So most of you say it's based on time and effort and impact. So हाम्रो driving force in terms of whose salary goes up and down is based on the जुन चाहिँ funding model छ नि हाम्रो, based on like कतिजना बच्चाहरू पुगे त्यही अनुसारको हाम्रो funding पनि बढ्छ. Salary promotions are based basically on that. So none of the funding that we have, like none of the salaries increments happen just on a त 6 महिना काम गरेर ठिक छ, but you have to show what impact have we made on the lives of children. So अहिलेको लागि the standard that we have is everyone who goes into a school session and helps to manage it. There's a difference between volunteers and team members who are managing. So team members will be people who are monitoring. They are paid around 400 per session. So एक दिन क्लासमा गएको चाहिँ they are paid 400 plus food on top of that.
Paid भन्ने बुझिनु भने एक्ज्याक्टली सरी ल अलिकति यो चाहिँ बुझिनु.
Sure, it's a bit of a complicated system. So they're salaried staff, right? And I want to be very clear, it's not a hierarchy-based salary system.
Hierarchy मा चाहिँ हुन्न like.
So just because I'm a leader doesn't mean I have a higher salary. Even though it might seem like it, but that's not the case. I'm the oldest member. I have reached my target, so based on that, I have a certain amount of salary. But other people will have salary increments based on उनीहरूको त्यो जुन चाहिँ क्लस्टरमा कति इम्प्याक्ट पार्यो उनीहरूले बच्चाहरूलाई. So that would be one.
Like बच्चा इम्प्याक्ट पारे अनुसार नै दिने हो स्यालेरी चाहिँ.
So the budget increases on the basis of that, and people will get promoted on that. So हाम्रो main focus is जुन मैले अघि भनेको थिएँ leadership पनि हो क्या. So for volunteers, for team members. So we really want them to grow. It's a very transitionary phase. So I am trying to functionally destroy my role in the system. That is to say, I don't want to be in a place where the organization is running just because of me. So mero job is to find my own replacements, to train my own leaders who can sort of lead the organization so that at some point I can transition out. So that would be one thing. And then other team leaders are doing very similar in their own palikas. So जो पनि नयाँ मान्छे आउँछ, they are put very fast into leadership positions. We waste very less time with that. That's why we have very high scaling targets. We're trying to reach a target very soon. Our leadership is a very massive focus for us, to help people plan, to help people structure things, to help people be not just like generic working matra, but they're learning and growing and experimenting with the program, so that उनीहरूको opportunity set चाहिँ बढोस्. So if they are working in fun, play, learn, and I can bet you this, anyone that I would recommend from my organization at some point who will be working in another organization, they'll be far more experienced than any other person working in an NGO for 10 years. Because
बुझिन यो फेरि बुझाइदिनु त नेपालीमै भन्दिनु यो चाहिँ यो भर्खर बुझिन यो चाहिँ यो वर्ड चाहिँ.
Okay. So the thing that I'm trying to convey is just like we have a 10x target model that is every 6 months our target increases by 10x. That is right now by the end of August we're trying to reach 30,000. The moment we reach that target, it's going to be 10x for the next 6 months. So it will be 3 lakh after like 3 lakh per student per week after 6 months.
Like यो बजेट चाहिँ भन्नु भयो नि त.
So not just budget, it's children in general.
Children,
So that is our main focus. So 3 lakh children, and then the next 6 months would be 30 lakh children. So it'll keep expanding on the basis of that. It's a very high scale program. So we're trying to grow exponentially rather than what generally organizations will do, that is grow very linearly. Now this is not a guarantee. I have no fucking, I have no freaking idea actually how we're going to achieve this. But the hope is if we keep having good people, which we have, we'll figure things out. There's a good planning structure in place, but it's 6 months at a time. So based on that, jati hamro children ko impact parcha, our funding increases, and on the basis of that salary increases at the same
अहिले
time.
फन्डिङ त बाहिरबाटै आइरहेको छ अहिले त होइन बढी जस्तो ए त्यस्तो लाइक यो हजुरको मेन मैले चाहिँ बुझेको अनुसार चाहिँ मेन चाहिँ चिल्ड्रेनलाई हेल्प गर्ने होइन त एक हिसाबले
Yeah.
अनि यो काम बापत हजुरले चाहिँ यो फन्ड उठाएर लाइक चिल्ड्रनमै युज गर्नुहुन्छ होइन
Yeah, most of
यो
it
हाँस्दै
go-
खेल्दैन यो
yeah.
बुझ्न खोजेको थियो मैले
Yeah,
थाहा
exactly,
छ
exactly,
लाइक यो के गर्नु अलिकति लामो कुरा चाहिँ पनि ठिक छ बुझ्न खोजेको थिएँ लाइक यो
So-
हजुरको मेन भनेको एनजिओ भनेको यसरी नै रहेछ लाइक सर्भिस दिएर होइन एउटा विथआउट मोटिभ होइन
Yeah.
अनि फन्डिङ उठाएर काम गर्ने रहेछ भनेपछि होइन त
Yeah, exactly. So it's that, but at the same time, हाम्रो केसमा चाहिँ we're a bit different. Again, their startup ko model, I think that makes sense. We're scaling up very fast with a lot of people. That's one. Tara arko euta चाहिँ any amount of money is fungible. That is, a lot of NGOs will be like, okay, here's a money here's a money for travel, here's a money for admin, here's a money for I don't know, some other operational thing. Money is fungible. It's a very weird concept that for us we have the autonomy to spend money wherever we want. A lot of our money goes on euta maintaining to 400 per session and 47 people go allowance plus material or jun chai school ma that's a bulk of our money going in. So based on that, we have the autonomy to spend whatever funds that we are getting wherever we want. We can it's a very interesting thing. Like I can make it like we can make it so that all of the money is gone in salaries. We can make so that none of us are taking salaries and all the money goes on children, but we have to balance all of those things out. So money is fungible भन्नुको reason चाहिँ regardless of where the money is going, हाम्रो complete program that's based on सबैजनाको salary, rent, materials that we are buying, and everything, our cost per child has to be 26 rupees per child per week. So that's not just school session matra kharcha गर्ने पैसा, that's the entire organization ko budget as a whole. So that would cover admin cost. So are you getting the sense? So there is no separate money pile for just admin cost. So we have to manage our budgets accordingly based on how much funds we are getting.
फन्ड्स अनुसार नै गर्नुपर्ने होइन त
Exactly.
लाइक यो हजुरको लाइक यो हजुरले त भन्नु भइहाल्यो यो प्रफिटहरू सेयरिङ हुँदैन भनेर होइन स्यालेरी बेसमै नै सबैजना हुनुहुन्छ भनेपछि भएको सबै हाम्रो
Yeah, so we have like around 45 people who are working who are the team members. They are not on a salary basis but an allowance basis. That is, they're being paid every time they go into a school session.
लाइक
There are very few people.
त्यो काम गरेको बेला मात्र दिने त्यस्तो चाहिँ अलाउन्स भन्नुभयो नि त
So one way, it's a very selfish motive in terms of maintaining our costs, because we're trying to maintain the 26 rupees per child per week cost, which is very difficult to do, by the way. But one of the reasons because when you look at a standard school calendar, you cut out all of the exams, you cut out all of the vacations, holidays. What we found is generally schools ma bachhaharu padhne actually classroom ma spend गर्ने time भनेको 4.5 months हुँदो रहेछ. That's like
1 इयरमा
1 year, man. That's 130 days roundabout. So that means it's 4.5 months of actual work that is happening. So if we pay everyone on a salary, which doesn't make sense किन भन्दाखेरि it just pushes the cost अति नै धेरै माथि.
कोस्ट धेरै लाग्छ.
Yeah, so cost धेरै
हजुरलाई
बढ्ने
म्यानेज फेरि अब नन प्रफिट छ त्यहाँमाथि होइन, अब हावातालमा गर्नु पनि मिल्दैन क्यारे, मिल्दैन. अलिकति धेरै सोच्नुपर्छ त्यहाँको बजेटहरू किनभने.
So and our primary focus is it's all about children, right? So we want to do something good for these children, but because resources are always going to be limited, we have to make choices in terms of के चाहिँ गर्न मिल्छ र के चाहिँ गर्न मिल्दैन.
लाइक यो एनजिओहरूमा वर्क गर्नको लागि चाहिँ कस्तो के गर्नुपर्छ नि वर्क चाहिँ,
जस्तै कि
लाइक वर्क गर्नलाई चाहिँ लाइक हजुरले इन्जिनियरिङ पढेर गर्नुभयो भन्नुभयो, लाइक जुन पनि कोर्स गरेर गर्न पाइयो कि कोर्स नगर्दा पनि गर्न पाइयो,
जे गर्दा नि गर्न पाइयो. So NGOs are, I think there is a value in getting experience. Like, I think right now in my status, I think I'm pretty hireable anywhere, but that came from 3 to 4 years of effort put into this.
Experience.
But when I was starting out, like anyone else, I started from volunteering. I started from finding things that I found interesting. And places where I thought I would make the most impact with this kind of skill sets that I had. I think if you want to work in an NGO, there's a very wrong concept that you'll not make money. I think there's a lot of money.
मैले यसो लाइक सोच्दाखेरि चाहिँ माइन्डमा चाहिँ हाल्थेँ, सोध्ने चाहिँ सोचिरहेको थिएँ क्या, लाइक धेरै पैसा त कमाउँदैन होला भनेर माइन्डमा सोध्न चाहिँ खोजिरहेको थिएँ.
If you work in very top NGOs, it's pretty normal for you to get like 2 to 3 lakh salary. You can work as a consultant as well in many cases. But that again comes from skills and experience in general. No one's going to just give you money.
2-3 लाखसम्म पनि कमाउन सकिन्छ.
Soccer, if you have enough experience,
skills, knowledge or skills,
right? But it's not that just because it's difficult than I would say corporate jobs, but for me currently I'm living my dream life because I'm in this field. So I'm doing something very impactful, something that is very close to my heart, something that I find deeply fulfilling, and I'm getting paid for
like it. Satisfaction pani toile paunu bhache ki sable हजुरले भने अनुसार छ.
Yeah, so that helps a lot, right? But corporate ma chai, now this might not be everyone's experience, but I know I would have the same experience. That is, I would have wanted to kill myself, right?
Like के हजुर corporate ma के समय गर्नु भएको थियो?
Not really, but I think my sense comes from talking to a lot of my friends and the kind of lives that they're living. I would say they earn more money than me, but I know I have a better life. I'm pretty arrogant about it because I do feel you do get bounded. Like I'm right now in the middle of the week. I'm speaking, talking to you. I have the freedom to sort of manage my time. Sometimes I work.
Time free. Or a freedom of time to
So, and not all of my team members get it. Like school sessions are bhairako, but. And मेरो case I'm working sometimes I'm working 12-13 hours a day. Sometimes I work like मेरो work life is basically 7 days a week and I take holidays 2 times. That is
work पनि रमाइलो रहेछ.
So मेरो केसमा I take breaks 2 times in a year. One is I go on a 10-day Vipassana retreat. I try to go to 10-day Vipassana retreat every year. यसपालि I'm going on a September.
कता जाँदै हुनुहुन्छ भन्नुभयो?
Vipassana. So you know what a Vipassana is? So it's a meditation retreat, silence, Arya Maun भन्ने हुन्छ. 10 days you are restricted from the outside world, zero communication. You don't get to take your phone, you don't get to write anything, you don't get to take your books. You sit there for 10 days and you do 10.5 hours of meditation every day. So that's Vipassana.
Like you चुपचाप बस्ने केही पनि नगरिकन.
केही पनि नगरिकन. So that gives me a way to.
के तपाईँ जानुहुन्छ भन्नुभयो कि जाँदै हुनुहुन्छ भन्नुभयो?
Last time actually गए. The second time I wanted to try, I had a very important interview which sort of त्यो भएको कारणले I couldn't last year. But this time I'm going on a September. And so those 10 days would be my break. And then apart from that, I take at least a month of break on Dasai and Tihar. That's like completely for me to trek. I love to travel. So every year I try to go at least some place that is a bit far. So I'll try and do that. And then those are practically the days that I take breaks. Other than that, koile kai there might be college ko sort of events which I might take holidays, but other than that I'm working 7 days a week. And I'm mostly working 13-14 hours a day. And many might think that, oh, that's a very toxic life culture. In my case, I think about things a bit differently. That is, yes, it's toxic if you don't like what you're doing. Right?
हो त्यो त हो
So that's the perspective. I would say if you want to make this podcast, you're not saying, oh, I'm just going to work 5 hours a day and that's like standard work done. I'm going to sleep for the rest of the time, right? You're doing this for yourself. And just like that,
मजा आउँछ मलाई
Mother also, it's lovely. Like, so it doesn't matter if you're working 12, 13 hours a day. Yes, it's highly stressful, but you love it. And it's the same thing for me. I like to work 12, 13 hours a day because I actually love doing this work. I mean, there is no boundary in a sense. It does help to have a girlfriend who actually understands that, which is very weird. That it's good in that way as well. That मेरो work life, it's what generally in the liberal sense would be called toxic. But my rationale to that is, if you're doing a corporate job and you feel like, I think I get paid less than any corporate job that I can. I think, I hope this doesn't seem arrogant, but I know I'll get paid more if I go to some other organization. But I don't care as much. And I've always been like this in a sense that I've never cared about money. I'm not saying it's not important, but I've always felt that money will find a way to make itself. And I do say that from a lot of privilege. That is, my family has been, I don't come from a rich family, but I think my father has done and worked very hard to give me a life that I have. So I have enough privilege that I have a bit of wiggle room in terms of not having to earn a lot of money very quickly. I'm not forced to go abroad to earn money, so that helps me a lot. I think a lot of people don't have those options. But because I have that privilege, whatever it might be, I do try to think a bit differently about how I want to live my life. So for the last 2-3 years, as soon as I passed engineering, my thought process was, fuck money. I'll find a way to make it somehow. But I really want to only now start focusing on, because I did 4 years of dreadful engineering. I was depressed most of the time. I don't want to get into that phase again. So even if I go broke, even if I have to like work my ass off for zero money for 2 to 3 years, I will keep doing it until until I do something. And somehow, weirdly enough, as we were talking, I've gotten very lucky. Like कतिपय cases-हरुमा चाहिँ I feel like I have a very interesting way that I like to see these things. Many people think that they get to the positions that they are through hard work. I think they're bullshitting themselves. So think about this, right? If you go back and look at your life, and let's say you project your life 3 years from now, and let's say you're an amazing podcaster, you'll go back and you'll think to people who helped you in that phase. And you probably had mentors. You probably had, at some point you'll have some amazing person who'll agree to talk to you, and that'll probably shift your entire career into a different direction. And there's a lot of element of luck involved in that, right?
Luck to धेरै चाहिन्छ.
Right? So yes, there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of effort. Like I've been working non-stop for the last 3 to 4 years. There is a lot of hard work there. But within that process, I've gotten terribly lucky with things. Because we don't recognize a lot of those things, I think we get very arrogant about our own successes. We think the world is meritocratic. It's not. What do I mean by this? So we feel, if you keep doing hard work, you'll get to where you are. I don't think that's true. I think you have to get very lucky to be where you are. Like, it depends from where you are born, right? A child who has been born in a very difficult family in some rural part of Nepal will have a lot of difficulties trying to get up in the world than a kid who was born in Kathmandu to a good enough family, or a kid who has been born in a very privileged home. It's a very different dynamic.
Different,
right? So, कतिपय cases-हरुमा चाहिँ I feel this realization is important, is because if you say, I worked let's say you get very rich at a certain point in time, and you say, I got very rich because I was working very hard. I'm not saying it's not true, it's true. But you're also saying people who are poor, people who could not do it, are there because they didn't work as hard as you, which is not true, right? Because a person working in a factory in Chaudhary Group is probably working a lot. Right? But it just happens as circumstances, luck, phase in life, whatever it might be, education, some people randomly helping them and funding them. It could be hundreds of different things. is a reason for why they are just not, they cannot get away in life. I feel like people whenever they say, oh, I'm rich, I'm famous, and I'm doing, like, I'm successful because I worked very, very hard. True, but don't be an arrogant prick about it. You had a lot of luck probably involved in that. You met a lot of people who probably helped you along the way. Right? Mero case ma, I say I've been very lucky. COVID ko time ma, I started from that, right? If COVID didn't happen, I would be doing a 9-to-5 job. I'd be banging my head against the wall. But because that happened, it was a terrible thing for many people. But personally speaking, it was a life-changing thing for me. I found a random club that I went into
like
all alone.
Engineering गर्नुभयो भन्नु भयो
Right.
Engineering like के को engineering?
Electronics and communication. So it deals with a lot of your tower and network and robotics in general. So that would be
like
it.
किन जोइन गर्नुभएको थिएन त्यसपछि हजुर त भन्दै हुनुहुन्छ बेकार गरे भनेर
So
यसको स्टोरी सुनाइदिनु न थोरै के गोज हो
as any teenager, I think I was arrogant when I passed grade 12. So 12 पछि science पढाएछ, engineering गर्नुपर्छ. And I come from a very traditional, modest family who like I would never say my parents forced me into it. तर हाम्रो culture कसरी derive भएको छ हेर न. It's like, oh, if you're studying science, you have to study engineering.
Oh, त्यस्तो
or you have
भन्छ.
to study. So I come from the same culture, and I was like, oh, अनि मेरो केसमा I really love learning. I love solving problems. I love tinkering. That is what I do अहिले पनि. I am the risk taker in the organization, and I have other people who pull me back. They're like, no, don't do it, right? So I will have ambitious goals while other people will keep me in check, and that's my personality. And at that point in time, I thought, oh, engineering is going to be this amazing thing. I'll do tinker. I'll do a lot of robotics. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. And I had this image in my head when I thought about engineering. And when I went in, it was like, you can imagine, right? It was like
अस्ति मैले इन्जिनियरिङ दाइसँग कुरा गरेको थिएँ मैले पोडकास्ट गरेको थिएँ मैले एउटा
rote memorization. There's nothing of value there. And I was a good enough student. I always was very studious in a sense. I wasn't the topper, but I did pretty well. And engineering the first semester, ma charda back paper. I'm like, oh shit! Like, is this it? Like, is this what engineering has? It? And fourth semester, ma, I remember I had like 8 the back paper.
8
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's not the end of it. So, त्यो point in time, I was trying to just get depressed. I can remember like it was uttinai sad. I didn't know where I was going with it. I felt like a failure because to a point in time, I had no NGO. I had no thing about, oh, like I'll be doing this in my life. I was like, oh, engineering sucks too. I'll do a standard job. That was my mentality. And in fourth semester, every engineering life, I don't know if that brother told you, that every engineering phase, there's a phase. Kya? So there are two. If you have friends nearby who have like panel लागिरहेछ panel भनेको सबै सब्जेक्ट लागेको अनि आफ्नो दुईटा मात्र सब्जेक्ट लाग्दाखेरि साथीको मलाई 6वटा सब्जेक्ट ब्याक लागेछ मेरो त दुईटा त मात्र हो द्याट्स वान एन्ड द नेक्स्ट थिङ इज ठ्याक्क द सेमेस्टरको एन्डको एक्जाम आइरहेको हुन्छ नि यु विल बी लाइक अब यो सेमेस्टर पनि बिग्रिएर अब अर्को सेमेस्टर टप हान्छु राइट सो फोर्थ सेमेस्टरमा चाहिँ आई वाज राइट एट द्याट फेज जुनमा चाहिँ यो सेमेस्टर चाहिँ बिग्रिएर अब अर्को सेमेस्टर भइरहेको थियो अनि आई डोन्ट नो वाट ह्यापन समथिङ जस्ट वाज लाइक आई वाज भेरी डिप्रेस्ड अनि घरमा गइसकेपछि आइम लाइक ओके आई क्यानट लिभ लाइक दिस आई हेभ टु फिगर समथिङ आउट अनि आई वाज लाइक ओके म पढ्छु अब द्याट इज द फर्स्ट टाइम वेन आई वाज लाइक म भोलि होइन म आजैबाट पढ्छु आई टुक आउट अ म्याथ बुक द ओन्ली सब्जेक्ट द्याट आई लभ आई स्टिल लभ म्याथ्स इन इन्जिनियरिङ होइन आई टुक आउट अ बुक आई स्टडिड अनि I was studying 10, 11 hours a day. And the work ethic comes from my dad. It's not me. The election kuran. And this was I was studying the pre-board. I passed all of it. Board exams, like back paper सहित गरेर सबै नै पास गरेँ सो 3टा कि 4टा ब्याक पेपर दिन मिल्छ एउटा सेमेस्टरमा
एउटा सेमेस्टरमा
सो म सबै ब्याक पेपर कटाएँ एन्ड एभ्रिथिङ एन्ड आई थट ओके रिजल्ट आउँछ एन्ड आई विल बी ह्याप्पी because I'll be like, oh, I accomplished. I'm not being the same person again. I'm going to get through this. I get the result. Everything that I expected happened. But I was still sad. Nothing changed. I was like, oh, shit, is this it? Like, is this all that I'm doing? So then I completely shifted my thought process. I was deeply thinking, oh, I'm useless. my parents thought I'm the only child, so a lot of effort into building a future for them is pretty much on me. And if I ever tell them, they're going to be very hurt. And I remember, like, after 4th semester, I went to this very deep spiral. But the thing that I did the best at that time was I picked out a bunch of books, very random books, and I started reading them. And त्यसपछि what I would do is, so I made a deal with myself. I was like, okay, I'm never going to pursue engineering. This was 4th semester. I'm never going to pursue engineering ever in my life. I admitted that. And I said, but I'm going to find something to do. And the only way I knew how to do it was to read a bunch of books. So I'd pick out a bunch of books. I'd go into a classroom. Teachers never cared what I was studying. I would stay in the back of the room and I would study my book. That way, within the span of 2 years, I got through somewhere around 90 books. That's how I studied so much.
90?
Yeah. And the way that I would study for engineering was every time exam on it, because I had made my deal. Like, I knew I didn't care about grades because I knew at that time I never want to pursue it. 6th semester in, I have 12 back papers remaining. I have another, like, 2 semester ma 18 subjects, 16 more regular subjects to pass. I take 6 extra months. Somehow, I passed it. मैले 6th semester गएर ममलाई भने पनि थिएँ कि मम, like, I don't think I can do this. Can I drop? सक्दिनँ होला. But like 12 back papers, the mom is shocked because for them, again, I was a pretty talented child. And when they heard कि 12 back papers, my dad was very hurt. Even though my mom doesn't understand what I do. My dad doesn't either, but my dad has always been my constant supporter. Mom has been as well. But dad actually understands कि there's more to life than just, getting certificates and all of that. And Dad was pretty hurt because even though he wanted me to be happy, he had this whole entire family that he might have to tell, oh, my child failed. And that's a very difficult thing for a parent to admit, right? And there is all of that to relationship, relative pressure. So somehow I passed. And I remember the day when I got my results. I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, मेरो सक्यो. And mom's very happy. Dad को phone गर्नु खोज्दा लागेन. अनि त्यसपछि एकछिन पछि dad को phone लाग्यो अनि के अरे daddy म पास भयो. मलाई तेरो मम्मीले भनिसक्नु भयो. अनि that was the first time in my life that was like thank you. Said thank you because now he can show his face to अनि now it does, like none of my parents care what I do because they know I'm doing something. They don't understand what I do exactly. तर
त्यसो बुझ्नुहुन्छ
छोरोलाई के गरिरहेछ के गरिरहेछ भनेर चाहिँ बुझ्नुहुन्छ. So that's an interesting place that I am in.
त्यस भनेपछि इन्जिनियरिङ भन्छ हजुरको त खतरा स्टोरी नै एक हिसाबले भयो. तर इन्जिनियरिङ गरे पनि खोइ गर्ने हुनु. म अस्ति चाहिँ अब 3rd सेमेस्टरको मान्छेसँग पोडकास्ट गरेको थिएँ कि यहाँ पुल्चोक इन्जिनियरिङ क्याम्पसको मेकानिकल इन्जिनियरिङ गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ उहाँ. अनि उहाँको दाइले पनि भन्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो कि खोइ बेरोजगार हुन्छ भन्छ खोइ त्यस्तो पनि भन्छ म्याक्सिमम.
Kind of true. Like a lot of my friends, not to shit on their jobs, that I know many of them hate what they're doing. I've seen a lot of friends shift career.
टिचर बन्छ भन्छ कि लाइक त्यो जब नपाएर होइन अनि टिचर बन्नुहुन्छ अरे.
It's quite sad because it comes from the same children mentality, right? Because सानैदेखि नै हामीलाई यो कुराहरू गर, you'll have a very good life भनेर सिकाइन्छ. But life is not that. You'll have a lot of problems that you need to solve. And because हामीलाई सानैदेखि नै त्यो कुराको लागि रेडी बनाइदैन, it's very difficult. Like, especially मेरो फेजमा, I'm not saying I'm some great person, तर I know if COVID hadn't happened, I would not be in this place. Because the amount of parental pressure जुन चाहिँ like bachelor सकिसकेको स्टुडेन्टलाई हुन्छ, it's quite massive. You cannot do what you want at that phase. And look at how weird हाम्रो society is. अहिले कहाँ रिस्क लिने? Like bachelor सका काम गर, अलिकति पैसा कमा अनि त्यसपछि पछि गएर काम गर. Imagine doing this podcast when you're in your 30s and married. Do you think it will be possible?
खोइ मैले त धेरै कुराहरू पहिला सोचे भए गर्दै गरेन.
Right? So it's very difficult, no?
अहिले चाहिँ मैले सोचेपछि गरिहालेँ केही समयमै.
Think about how our life is sort of structured. Our life is like, 30 मा जा पैसा कमा बाहिर जा.
तर मलाई नि यस्तो लाग्छ कि लाइक त्यो सोच हामी भन्छौँ नि होइन पछि गएर गर भने तर त्यो पछि हाम्रो यस्तो एनर्जी हुन्छ होला त होइन सोच्छु म पनि आज भोलि चाहिँ
एनर्जी हुँदैन. सोच न तिम्रो अब्लिगेसन धेरै हुन्छ. You can still live in your parents' house. It's a lot of difficulty like त्यो टाइममा.
अब त्यति बेला फेरि थिङ्किङ नै आउँदैन होला गर्छु भनेर.
like in your mid-20s, the amount of freedom that you have, like I could waste another 3 years of my life and I could earn nothing, and I'll still be in a good enough place to do something.
तर कोही फेरि भन्छ कि लाइक अहिले नगर किनभने अहिले छैन त्यो भनौँ न अहिले पैसा छैन यस्तो यस्तो लाइक इक्विपमेन्ट अब रिसोर्सेस छैन वा के यस्तो यस्तो भन्छ तर मलाई चाहिँ के लाग्छ भन्दा अहिले जे छ त्यसले नि गर्दा हुन्छ होइन भन्न खोजेको मैले चाहिँ
right. So look, you're doing it with a piece of like microphone that is attached to something very. So this is jugaad. This is what we do. This is what we are good at. And the hope is. So this is what my funder used to tell me. It's a lesson that I learned a while ago, but he sort of reinforced this idea. He was almost broke until the age of 35. My funder is someone who worked in Google when he tells a story about but when Google was still starting. So he was very early in Google when he was working there. But the point at which he earned a lot of money, he was already doing what he loved. The only thing that he loved doing was coding. And the thing that I learned, the important essence of the story is if you keep pushing and keep persevering through things you love, you keep doing it, at some point money will find a way to make itself. Right? Mero kesma, I have been very lucky. I put in a lot of hard work, but it just so happens that that I persevered, and as you keep doing the right thing, somehow apparently life figures out a way to make itself work. It's just that simple. It just depends on, for some it will happen in 2 years, for some it will happen in 1. For me it happened in about 2.5 years. For many it's might take a bit longer.
Like तपाईँको जस भनौँ न एनजिओमा एनजिओकै वर्क नै 3 years भयो नि त गर्नुभएको
Almost, yeah. So out of
3
that,
years.
Yeah. So out of that, a bulk of it was volunteering, probably a year. The next year was kind of volunteering because a lot of my salary was on I was getting virtuous salary. It was there, but I hadn't gotten it. Last ma exit गर्ने बेलामा, that's when I received all of my salary, because to a point when I was running that organization or helping to run that organization, they just didn't have funds to pay me. And it was like a modest 10,000 a month salary for an entire year. Ups and downs in life, but again, been pretty lucky with things, because I've always, for the last 3 years, I can quite comfortably say कि I have only done the things that I love.
Wow, यो वर्ड्स धेरैले भन्नै पाउँदैन नि.
So, and अस्ति नै एउटा क्वेसन आएको थियो, like
भन्नु न.
If you died tomorrow, would you have any regrets? Type No, would you have any regrets? Right? Because that's the most important thing. You should always ask yourself, if I'm about to die tomorrow, am I doing, like, what I'm doing currently, is it worth it, right? And that cuts through a lot of bullshit. Because if you're doing a corporate job and you think, oh, bloody hell, I'm like, when I'm 80 and I'm taking my last breath, I'm going to curse myself and say, if I would have just quit and started something new. Now, I'm not saying this is an option. This is not a motivational speech. I hate that. Right? Because it does depend on circumstances, right? But I think कतिपय केसेसहरुमा चाहिँ I also see कि very people who come from privileged backgrounds, who don't have to worry a lot about earning money, are also sort of burning themselves on this treadmill. Okay? They do things that they don't like just because they have to, or just because they want to do something. But if you do have like opportunities like that I had, I think you should go for it so that you'll not have regret. And the question was that, it was like, would you have any regret? I was like, no.
Like कोही कहिले फेरि भन्छ नि म यति एज हुन्छु भनेर गर्दा गर्दै पाइन भनेर.
Exactly, right? So I was like, I'll start this at 35. Like, no, you're never going to do that. The reason for that is quite simple. You're going to have a lot more obligation. The percentage of people who actually say those things and actually are able to do it, that's a very small percentage of people. And I say it's the same thing as people saying, oh, I'll make this long distance relationships work. It's like, no, you're not. If your girlfriend is going to Australia and you have a 12-hour time difference where you have to wake up in different time zones on a multiple, you're not going to make it work. Just have to give up. Right? Like, I think certain realities are...
workout गर्छ नि त.
And that is what I'm saying. Like, these are exceptions, not the rule. But it just depends on कतिपय cases. So yes, it's perseverance, but sometimes you just have to accept reality for what it is. you're not going to be able to open up that business that you really love at the age of 35 if you're not taking risks in your 20. Because it's not just about money. It's not just about freedom. It's also about skill sets, right? Because starting a company, thinking about it, and actually doing it are two very different things. You have like on hands काम गर्नु र सोच्नुमा धेरै फरक छ नि त.
लाइक सोच्नु र काम धेरै नै जमिन आसमान फरक छ.
We do a lot of things called
तर गर्दाखेरि थाहा पाउँछ.
Exactly. We do a lot of things like non-action planning. This is what we do in our organization that is very different. Like if someone comes up with me an idea and they will be like, oh, this is this game that I want to try. I was like, why haven't you tried it already? Right? That's the point. Like, but I have to make this perfect. Like this has to work. I'm going to plan a week. Like no, that's not how things work. Exactly, right? So the idea is you try, you fail, you learn, you refine. Try, fail, learn, refine. And that's a way faster process because this is where the difference is. Let's say you plan something for a month. You do it. You have no idea whether or not it will work. It will work in your head that actually काम नगर्न सक्छ, especially when you're working with kids. And what you can do with that idea? You wasted 1 month of time trying to come up with a single idea that you thought might work. Let's say it works. It's one idea still. But let's say instead of doing that, you say, okay, I'm going to try everything. Like I'm going to try a very small thing every day. You try. Maybe you fail. Maybe next day you fail. Maybe third day you fail. And out of the 10 days, you'll have like at least 3 to 4 ideas that will work. Out of 30 days, you'll have 10 to 12 because you tried hundreds of them. Now, who won at the end of the day? Exactly, right? So, who won at the end of the day? Was it the one person who planned it, everything and made it perfect for one? Like, planning is very important. But non-action planning, you're thinking, yo garchu. And then at the end of the day, you don't really do anything.
Oh, right? 3-4 वर्ष भइसक्यो हुन्छ. 5 वर्ष 3 वर्ष बितिसक्यो हुन्छ के.
Exactly. So thinking धेरै गर्छौं के हामीले. अनि यो गर्छौं यसरी गर्छौं भनेर सोच्छौं तर we never commit to action के.
ब्याक हेर्दाखेरि 5 वर्ष 6 वर्ष 3 वर्ष बितिसक्यो हुन्छ के.
Exactly, right? But let's say if you had ever said कि म podcast गर्छु, I'm going to go into a job, I'm going to earn this money, I'm going to buy the best equipment and I'm going to do it. I'm pretty sure you're never going to do it.
Best equipment ko meaning
right? So because you're doing this, it's already getting done. Even if you're creating the worst podcast, which it is not, you're learning things. You're adapting. I bet you created this setup, the kind of setup that you had early on. You fixed everything. I bet you didn't do this in the first try, right?
फर्स्टमा त गरिन
है. सो कतिचोटि गरिसकेपछि रिफाइन गर्दै आएको प्रोसेस हो नि त.
सुरुमा त यो माइक नर्मल माइक थियो, त्यसपछि सो आइडिया आयो के लाइक जुगाड गर्दाखेरि.
So now imagine what people do. They will be like, I'll wait for a year. म सबै कुराहरु सिक्छु युट्युबबाट and then I'll take this podcast. Now imagine what would have happened. Even if that person has learned everything about a podcast, it will still go terribly wrong.
Best कहिले बनाउन सकिन्न नि. सकिन्छ र हजुरलाई के लाग्छ लाइक
I don't think that's and I think there's no fun.
Best र perfect answer best र perfect को पछि लाग्यो भने चाहिँ कहिले नि स्टार्टै हुँदैन.
कहिले नि स्टार्टै हुँदैन. Exactly.
किबोर्ड सिक्दै जाने मेरो नि तपाईँ बिगिनिङ पोडकास्ट हेर्नु भयो नि तपाईँ. अलि पुरै हावा थियो क्या. त्यही पनि मैले त्यो राखेको छु कि लाइक यसरी स्टार्ट गरेको छु भनेर.
So that's the point of it. You fall in love with the process. You probably
मजा आउँछ नि लाइक स्लोली ग्रोथ भइरहेछ क्या. लाइक हजुरसँग भेट्न मौका पाएँ, मान्छेहरूसँग भेटिरहेको छु होइन. लाइक स्लोली ग्रो भइरहेको छु. म पनि ग्रो भइरहेको छु प्लस यो च्यानल पनि बिस्तारै ग्रो भएर यस्तो मजा आइरहेको छ कि लाइक तपाईँले भने जस्तै तपाईँले एउटा बेबीलाई पाल्नु भयो भन्नुभयो नि त्यो हजुरको यो हाँस्दै खेल्दैलाई होइन. म पनि एउटा बेबीलाई जस्तै यो च्यानललाई हेरिरहेको छु क्या. लाइक स्लोली गइरहेको छ मजा आइरहेको छ. स्लो ग्रोथ मजा पनि आउँछ.
Stop focusing on numbers. It's all about
numbers त कहिले पनि फोकस गर्नु हुँदैन.
When can I do the next one? When can I talk with the next person? It's the same thing. The moment you start
नम्बर्समा तपाईँले भन्नुभयो नम्बर्समा त कहिले फोकस गर्नै हुँदैन. नम्बरको गेम सबभन्दा वर्स्ट गेम नै हो जस्तो लाग्छ मलाई चाहिँ.
So there are also two ways to seeing this. एउटा चाहिँ if you make numbers your sense of satisfaction, then it becomes a problem. But numbers can be a way to sort of have a target as well.
टार्गेट राख्नु पर्छ. एउटा टार्गेट त यो इस्यु गर्नु पर्छ भनेर.
So two ways of seeing this. जस्तै कि हाम्रो केसमा चाहिँ we have by the end of August we want to reach 30,000 children per week with 100 team members in 200 schools. That's our target. But all of our focus goes on quality. So what are we doing with children? Are we doing something interesting with children? So we're trying, can we do things like plantation with children? Can we try things like, I don't know if it's possible, cooking with children? Can we try and do drama with children? So there's a bunch of things that Fun Play Learn does. So our focus is how can we keep improving the impact? How can we improve our offerings? Because our funding is pretty much on a scale basis. Hamro focus say, yes, there's this focus on expansion, getting the more children. That mostly we're trying to impact a lot of children in a positive way by putting a lot of effort into what the things that we're doing. So all of my teammates are very critical of each other's work. I think in Nepal culture, we're very bad at taking criticisms, which doesn't help. We grow very slow.
ग्रोथ पनि हुन्छ
Growth
तपाईले त
छिटो हुन्छ,
भन्नु पर्यो त्यो चाहिँ
So we have a very quick feedback system. So I think like हाम्रोमा चाहिँ daily update को systems छ. So every one of our team members will put a daily update. There will be reflection of their thoughts. Like बच्चाहरुसँग कसरी गेम खेल्यो? What are the questions that they asked? What are the questions that you ask them? Session कस्तो गयो and all of it. And they'll have problems like यो कुरा गर्न खोज्दा चाहिँ मिलेन because you're working with real actual children. Every session is not perfect, but we are trying to do our best. But in the process of analyzing a lot of mistakes are common. So like in our organization, mistakes are not something that we scold people for. It's a way for improvement. So we tell them, try something fast, fail faster, and improve faster. So they will write a daily update, and every once in a while, I'll criticize them. Okay, this is what you did right. This is what could have been done. Try this. And they get to quickly learn and improve on their future growth, whatever it might be. Their sessions, their conversations, and all of it. And that's how people get helped over a period of time. So it's a team helping team. We have a very flat hierarchy. For understanding it is, so flat hierarchies are a concept. I'm saying it's a concept because it's almost impossible to maintain. Even our organization is very
flat hierarchy. Like
just like so in many organizations you would have there is a chief executive officer
ठुलो गर्दै सानो
right? That's how society is structured.
Flat चाहिँ पुरै सबै same level.
So there are many ways that we have tried and achieved this. A few ways. So one is no one gets hired at a higher salary level. I don't care if you have worked in an organization for 10 years. If you want to work with us, you start
salary.
Yeah,
beginning
you work on a 400 per session basis, and based on your impact, your salary will go up with time. But on impact, right? So everyone gets at the same salary level. The reason for doing that, if I bring in anyone who is paid higher than the person who is working early, that automatically creates a hierarchy. So that's a way of balancing it. The reason for why I said it's a concept and it's very difficult to attain is at least in my organization, I would say I, along with my co-leads, are two others, are sort of like leadership in terms of everyone comes to us. So that's one level of hierarchy, I would say. But we are trying to maintain that in a way that everyone gets to question me. Everyone can tell me to shut up, right? So the way that we do that is, the next thing is we have a Timi culture. Everyone, regardless of their age, calls everyone else Timi. It's a very simple thing that it's very useful in an organization like ours. The reason for that is the moment you call someone Tapai, you automatically create a hierarchy.
Hierarchy right?
So think about this. Do you share a lot about your personal things with your parents, or do you share a lot about your personal things with friends?
Friends सँगै हो नि.
And you check what language you use, right? So parents-हरुसँग तपाईं हुन्छ, teachers-हरुसँग तपाईं हुन्छ. Even दाइहरुसँग पनि त्यति धेरै share गरिँदैन if you're calling. So the moment you call someone Timi, conversation becomes a lot more easier. So everyone has to call me Timi. If you ever call anyone Tapai,
it's सानो छ भने पनि.
If anyone calls anyone Tapai, there's a 1 rupees fine. And it's a very funny little system that you have come up with. So Slack was a +1 हुँदै जान्छ कि 1 रुपैयाँ. So the joke is that at some point सबै पैसा मिलाएर चाहिँ we will all go picnic, right? So that's one way that we are doing it. And then that's one level hierarchy. The next hierarchy is, I would say, volunteer ko basis ma. But again, flat hierarchies are impossible. So we're still trying to work our best to maintain flat. So even what we have also tried is volunteers are team members are like, because volunteers who come in, we are working with volunteers from a lot of BSW colleges. At this point, I think we are partnered with somewhere around 15 to 20 BSW colleges all around the valley. and they send us like 10-15 on every 3 to 4 months ko cycle ma, and they work with us in our field, grow, learn, engage with children very directly. So we have a very different model in which we implement. The farthest that we go in terms of orientation would be Igdin. That's the longest that we would do it. If we can, we'll not even do that. The reason for that is, again, me telling you how the session works, and I would love to invite you in one of our sessions to see how we actually work. Me describing a lot of what we do in sessions is one thing, but seeing it live in action is completely different. So I can do like a week-long presentation telling all of our volunteers, this is how you manage children, this is how you play games, these are all of the things that we do. I can spend a week, but those things become practically useless because as non-action planning, it's just thoughts. When you work with actual real-life children, everything is chaotic. Everything is difficult. So it's a lot more beneficial if the second day they go into a session, they're working with children right on. So that means they're learning faster, right? They're failing, yes, probably, that they're learning very, very fast. And it's not that we'll send them directly to a session and then, there are support systems. So we have team members who will be like, यसरी गर्ने. There will be a 1 hour prep session, जुनमा चाहिँ school session सुरु हुनुभन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ 1 घण्टा अगाडि सबैजना भेटेर we will discuss, we'll think, okay, आज यो गेमहरू खेल्ने, now let's think about के चाहिँ story build गर्न सकिन्छ. So story is त्यो पेपर रकेट भनेको थिएँ नि म, रकेट रमबाट सो हे बच्चाहरू, दिस इज एन एस्ट्रोनट, यसलाई चाहिँ हामीले आकाशमा पुर्याउन खोजिरहेको थियौँ, ल यो एस्ट्रोनटलाई सबैले आकाशमा पुर्याउँ ल. सो द्याट्स अ स्टोरी, राइट? अनि यु क्यान अल्सो टेल, ल अब तिमीहरूलाई कसलाई चाहिँ स्पेसमा पुर्याउन मन छ, लाइक पेपरमा ड्र, लाइक त्यो रकेटमा ड्र गर, राइट? एन्ड देन they shoot it up. So it's a story. They get to engage with it. There might be thing like the thing that we do with like toothpicks and potato cubes ma katera. So we'll join them and we'll make structures out of it, 3D structures. So we'll tell them, okay, yahamबाट मान्छे एउटा गएर चाहिँ झप्प झर्यो. So can you now help me form a bridge that gets me to point A to point B? So यो बेन्चदेखि अर्को बेन्चसम्म एउटा bridge बनाऊ, right? So you're forming a story, and they're see, it transfers out. So you're trying to create a lot of stories. So the question in prep sessions will be prepping all of the materials. के चाहिँ क्वेसन सोध्छौ बच्चाहरूलाई, why do you think we play this game? Because that why is very important. किन खेल्ने त हैन कुनै गेम? So you're trying to teach them to be critical of things. So आजको यो सेसन, what we do in schools is we have like stalls हुन्छ. So मेला जस्तो टाइपले चाहिँ we'll go in and engage with children. So 15 मिनटको ग्यापमा, सो 15 मिनट चाहिँ हामीले उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ पेपर कप खेलाउन लाग्यो. सो दे मेक अ म्यासिभ टावर. समयको बुचा सबै हल्यो लड्छ, राइट? एन्ड देन चिल्ड्रेन लर्न टु क्रिएट स्ट्रक्चर्स द्याट डोन्ट फल वेन यु सेक थिङ्स. सो दे विल गो इन्टु सर्कल्स अनि ठुलो बनाउँछ. सो a bunch of those things. And these are very simple games, very low cost materials. The reason for doing this is we don't have a lot of fancy equipments, because one, it costs a lot of money. Next, as I said already, यो त म सक्दिनँ भन्ने हुन्छ. So we want to give them that sense कि यो त मैले घरमा नि गर्न सक्छु, right? So that's another thing. अनि अर्को भनेको चाहिँ the volunteers that we work with, we don't want to make it super complicated so that it takes like weeks to teach them those things. So 5 minute, this is how you make a paper rocket, this is how you fly it, not बनाउने फाल्ने. This is Jenga, this is how you create blocks, this is what you do with children, this is the questions that you ask. Very quick, fast moving, where they don't have to think a lot about कसरी गर्ने. We have worked out another model, जस्तै कि SE को volunteersहरू, SE पास भइसकेपछि खाली बसेको, we have a few अहिले जुन कलेजमा +2 छ त्यही +2 कै volunteersहरूलाई युज गर्ने, so that we can empower people in that same college. That's another model. The next model that we are sort of experimenting with, and it's a bit it's quite working अहिले, is 8 र 9 को बच्चाहरूलाई चाहिँ बच्चाहरूसँग खेल्न लगाउने. So that teaches them leadership, that teaches them how to manage things, right?
गेमले धेरै
exactly
इफेक्ट गर्छ
very important skills that's going to help them years and years from now. And compared to like bachelor's पढिरहेको student, the value in 8 and 9 is that bachelor's पढ्ने students are, they're set, they'll follow a path. It's very difficult for them to change. It's not that we don't try, but for 8 and 9 को kids, these experiences are quite valuable because they have
valuable हुन्छ.
Long time horizons, and they still have like 2, 3, 5, 6 years to go ahead. And there's a bit of selfishness in us as well, in a sense that after like 2 to 3 years, those people will come back to us, right? So there's that sense as well that fun period primary motive is to help. Is to help with a lot of compassion, a lot of love.
तर हजुरले गरेको कामले त लाइक धेरै हेल्प गर्छ होला सायद मलाई किन लागिरहेको छ किन भन्दाखेरि यो आजभोलि त सबै मोबाइलमै गइरहेछ नि त
Exactly, that's
मोबाइल नै बढी खेल्छ अनि पुरानो भनौँ न त्यो एउटा मेमोरी नै बन्दैन जस्तो लाग्छ कि मलाई चाहिँ पहिला
मेनली हामीले अहिले आएको इनिसियल फिडब्याक्सहरू चाहिँ कस्तो छ स्कुल्सबाट भन्दाखेरि टिचर लाइक चिल्ड्रेन आर collaboratively working well. They're working in team well. They're a bit disciplined, not by Peter, just disciplined. They're naturally good. And those are good feedbacks. Even though, to be honest, हामीले गरिरहेको गेम्सहरू चाहिँ अथवा हामीले गरिरहेको कामहरू चाहिँ we have no way of analyzing हाम्रो impact कहाँ भइरहेछ, because analysis, assessment in and of itself costs a lot of money. And we're not currently in that place where we want to spend money on assessments. So हाम्रो केसमा the kind of impact that we get are twofold, एउटा threefold. One is children are laughing, they're having fun, they're smiling when they're in our sessions. The next would be in terms of like teachers are दिइरहेको feedback. And the third would be that schools are not kicking us out. It's not that there hasn't been these cases, there have. For many reasons. Sometimes we have messed up. Sometimes because the administration had a different direction that they want to go to. But I would say 90 to 95% of the time, we do, like my team does a good enough job that schools want us coming over and over again, because they have seen that value in children that we make. So that's very important.
Like that's just milky sona the beach again.
It's okay.
जस हजुरले लाइक यो एनजिओलाई होइन यो यसो सोध्नु पनि मन लाग्यो एउटा क्वेसन चाहिँ मलाई यो एनजिओ लाइक करियर बनाउन सकिन्छ है भनेपछि मजाको है यसमा
लाइक भेरी वेल देयर इज अ लट अफ
हजुरले गर्दै पनि हुनुहुन्छ नि त एक हिसाबले लाइक म राइट मान्छेसँग पनि सोधिरहेको जस्तो पनि लागिरहेको छ अहिले
आई थिङ्क यु क्यान आई थिङ्क त्यही मैले भन्न खोजेँ लाइक नेपालमा नन प्रफिट भन्ने बित्तिकै दुईवटा न्यारेटिभ छ एउटा चाहिँ नन प्रफिटहरू डलर खानको लागि मात्र आएको
त्यस्तो कुरा आउँछ
धेरै आउँछ राइट अनि आई हेभ रिटन अ भेरी लङ पिस अन फेसबुक अबाउट वाइ द्याट इज नट द केस एन्ड आइ एम नट सेङ देयर आर नट एनजिओज लाइक द्याट आई थिङ्क अर्थक्वेक यो क्यालामिटिजहरू भएको एनजिओजहरूले धेरै काम बिगारेको छ like they have taken funds and there's a lot of corruption going on there. I don't know which organization these are. I haven't gone into too much studies, but I know pretty well that there are organizations to do it. Mine is not. And the reason for that is come and visit one of our sessions, engage with the team. Our finances are open. All of our metrics are open. You can ask me any questions you want, because we do believe in transparency. And that is where I think non-profits power comes from. That's one. So there was a narrative of, all non-profits are like that. Not exactly. I think that non-profits like mine, there are a bunch of other non-profits very similar to mine that is doing, not similar in the sense that they do the same thing, but who want to do good. There are a lot of non-profits who are doing a lot of good work, right? So that would be one. The narrative, I think, is faulty in a sense. It's not critically looked at. Like, sabai NGOs like एउटै ठाउँमा merge गर्नु is probably not a good idea. So the second narrative that is, non-profit go and paisa hudaina, it's all volunteering. It's not entirely it's not entirely untrue, but mero concept is there's a lot of space in non-profit in terms of either you want to go into policy making, either you want to do something that I've been doing that is solving problems, either you want to do engage with children, you want to go into education, you want to go into health sector, whatever it might be. If you have the skill sets and experience, you can make a very good career out of it. It's just that compared to a corporate sector, non-profits are very difficult to like. And I would not say it's because you need networks and all of that. I started from zero networks. My family wasn't well off. I didn't know anyone before I came into this sector. But if you keep doing right thing, there are people who will notice you. Kina bandaheri, I think the space is still very small. In a sense, there are not enough people who can do a lot of important things in non-profit, like solving problems, using a lot of bairago planning structures in ours. Like, for example, let's say we have something called OKRs, that is overall key results. Every team, every palika cluster, describe they all have their own OKRs. They'll be like, June end summer, I'll open up 30 schools. And then by the end of August, I'll go 60, right? And these are like, by that time, I'll impact 6,000 children every week. So that's an OKR, that's a target. I'll have 10 team members, I'll have 80 volunteers by then. And it's a target. So they will figure out how to do that. And that's how our organization is set up. And those are that's the same technique that Google uses. And given like our founder is from Google, we use similar strategies. It's one of the tools. But if you have sort of created a personality in this sense, you put in a lot of hard work, you do good work, not just show off, but also you're doing a lot of like trying to do the right things, people will notice you because there are not enough people who can do a lot of problem solving in Nepal in general. There are very few. One thing that I find very interesting is, apart from what I do now, Hasdai Kheldai Age, I also am a public speaking trainer. I love teaching children. And it's very interesting that it's very easy to get hired. So I do part-time works, right? Katibay ठाउँहरुमा चाहिँ they pay me like 1,000 rupees an hour, similar to that. And then I give like a 1.5 hour session, activity-based, to children on how to speak publicly, help them grow. So it really depends. Like if you're trying to do something very meaningful, you really believe in what you want to do, you have your why, that is why I want to do something, non-profit is a very good sector. It's just that it's going to require a lot of hard work, that's all.
त्यही एउटा माइती घरमा एउटा कलेज छ, मैले कलेजको नाम एक्ज्याक्टली बिर्सेँ, त्यहाँ बिएसडब्ल्यू पढ्ने स्टुडेन्ट थियो कि उसले पनि भन्दै थियो एनजिओतिर चाहिँ राम्रो खोइ करियर बनाउनु सोच्दै थियो त्यति बेला। मैले चाहिँ त्यति बेला तर मैले चाहिँ पुरै थाहा थिएन कि यसको बारेमा चाहिँ, लाइक यस्तो पनि हुने रहेछ है, लाइक लाइक धेरैलाई इन्फर्मेसन छैन जस्तो पनि लाग्छ क्या मलाई चाहिँ। छैन है, लाइक हजुरलाई पहिला थियो त्यसको बारेमा इन्फर्मेसन, यो इन्जिनियरिङ गर्दासम्म थिएन है, इन्जिनियरिङ गरेपछि त्यसपछि एक्सप्लोर गर्दै गर्दै थाहा पाउनु,
एक्सप्लोर गर्दा गर्दै थाहा पाएको। अनि इट्स वान अफ दोज सेक्टर्स, लाइक आई थिङ्क while I was studying engineering, as you said, if it had given me a sense ki, oh, I'll be working in a non-profit doing what I'm doing now, practically impossible. Like, are you kidding me? Like, no. But once I'm in this sector, I see hundreds of different opportunities because now I can see where I can be helpful, where I can actually make a difference. And it's just a question of what do you want to choose. So for now, I'm choosing to work, like to grow this organization that I'm working with, purely out of the sense like, that I want to do something great.
त्यो इन्फर्मेसन चाहिँ छैन यो भने, लाइक धेरैलाई इन्फर्मेसन छैन, धेरै यतिकै बेरोजगार नै बसिरहेको छ नि त रियालिटी।
That's one other thing that I want to work. So as you know, a lot of young people in Nepal are going abroad at a very alarming rate. I'm finding it very sad in a sense ki currently I have so many very smart people working with me because our selection process is very, very strict. And a lot of them are like 11 and 12, so smart, but all of them will be gone after 6 months. It's so sad because my thought process is that if you want to like at least spend like a couple of years in Nepal after you finish your 12, because before you decide why you like, I think a lot of people just go abroad because it's a trend.
ट्रेन्ड लाइक यस्तै भइरहेछ नि त, हो त अहिले त्यसै भन्नु ट्रेन्ड नै हो एक हिसाबले। त्यसले गरिरहेको छ भने त्यहाँ मजा आउँछ, पैसा कमाउँछु भन्नेले आफ्नो एउटा भनौँ न आफ्नो इकिगाई टाइप फाइन्ड हुँदैन नि त केही पनि।
अनि कस्तो इन्ट्रेस्टिङ लाग्छ क्या। अनि like my funder was asking like this couple of kids who are going abroad a question like, doing what you're doing now, when you eventually go abroad, would anything that you do there come anywhere close to what you're doing right now? And their answer in a second was 100% no. Because the culture is made in such a way because it's very flat. I would say very few who have come into Hasdai Kheldai have left the organization because they felt they had better opportunities outside. Turnover due to people feeling I can do something else, somewhere else, has been very low. Most of the turnovers or people who have left have been, I want to go abroad. That's one of the primary reasons for why we're having difficulty retaining people. I'm quite arrogant and confident in saying, like, I think our work culture does retain people. I think a lot of people who are applying abroad are wishing that their visas would not be selected. So that they will have a thing to tell their parents, oh, mom, I tried, but it didn't work out. And I think they would spend more time with us. But it just so happens the culture in Nepal is you can get past grade 12 and just go abroad. It's just...
के गर्नु अब हामीले गर्न पनि
केही सकिँदैन,
सकिन्न त्यही तर खोइ अब कोही कोहीको त अब बाध्यता परेर पनि जाने हुन्छ तर कोही कोही ट्रेन नै चाहिँ बढी गइरहेको छ ट्रेन भनेर
it comes down to privilege. I think I'm quite empathetic towards people who don't have the privilege, who didn't have a good family, who have to go abroad in order to sustain their life. I would say 100% true, you're right. But it's not just that. Because of the circles that I've worked with, I'm seeing a lot of people who come from privilege, that is parents who are well off. They can probably spend like the 10 years of their next life with their parents and nothing will happen. Even those people are like, oh, I have to go abroad. And katibai cases haruमा the reason is, I don't know what it is, maybe it's hyper-liberalization or people looking at social media too much. They're like, म 30 सम्म मेरो लाइफ फिगर आउट गरिसक्नुपर्छ.
ओ यो चाहिँ एकदम सबभन्दा
राइट
एकदम वर्स्ट नै हो जस्तो लाग्छ यो कुरा चाहिँ मलाई.
राइट अनि सो त्यो हुने बित्तिकै नो बट यु हेभ योर इन्टायर लाइफ इन फ्रन्ट अफ यु. लाइक यु डोन्ट निड टु हेभ योर लाइफ फिगर्ड आउट इन यर 20s. दे लाइक म 21 भइसक्यो, म बुढो भइसकेँ. आई जस्ट पास 12 एक वर्ष ग्याप लियो भने ला एक वर्ष ग्याप भयो मेरो साथीहरू
2 वर्ष ग्याप भयो.
कन्स्टेन्ट कल्चर अफ कम्पेरिजन विथ इच अदर इन टर्म्स अफ ओ लाइक मैले गरिनँ भने कसले गर्छ, ओ त्यसले त त्यस्तो गरिसक्यो मैले के गर्ने. एन्ड देन प्यारेन्ट्स डोन्ट हेल्प इट इदर. दे लाइक ओ त्यसको लाइक माई प्यारेन्ट्स स्टिल डु इट टु मी. इट्स लाइक ओ त्यसको छोराहरू त बाहिर गएर लाइक अस्ट्रेलिया गएर त्यत्रो पैसा कमाएर पठाएर तैँले लाइक मम I'm doing something good. It's not just always about money. It's not just always...
Comparison एकदम worst है तर.
Yeah. So, and that makes people who are even in their 20s feel ki, oh, I'm already old. Like they feel like they're in their 60s trying to solve things, which is terrible. I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully, the Asti routine of Nepal Bandale ni halat थियो.
के हाल्नु भएको थियो?
के थियो के रे कति खर्ब चाहिँ यो वर्ष मात्र बाहिर गएको छ अनि hopefully these people will come back and I'm like hopefully because I am scared about what's going to happen in this country.
Oh, like 10 year पछि
20
year पछि चाहिँ लाइक हामीलाई जनशक्तिको खाँचो होला कि
अहिले जनशक्तिको खाँचो
खाँचो छ है तर है त्यही किन लाइक यो राइट धेरै ठाउँमा अपर्च्युनिटीहरू छ होइन
छ नि
यो एनजिओमा पनि टर्ने छ होइन त्यही पनि बेरोजगार छ लाइक यो के यो म क्वेसन गर्नु मिल्छ क्वेसन चाहिँ
आई थिङ्क देयर आर फ्यु रिजन्स फर इट. एउटा चाहिँ आई डोन्ट नो इट्स अ मिक्स अफ मेनी डिफ्रेन्ट थिङ्स
लाइक अपर्च्युनिटी पनि छ क्या देखिन्छ क्या. अब इभन मैले पनि ठाउँ ठाउँमा देखिरहेको हुन्छु. एनजिओ पनि भर्खर आज पनि एक्सप्लोर गरेँ मैले नयाँ कुरा गरेर थाहा भयो. मलाई पुरै नलेज चाहिँ थिएन, सुनेको मात्र थिएँ यताउता साथीहरूसँग. तर बबाल रहेछ नि हिस्सा पनि मिहिनेत चाहिँ लाग्छ, टाइम लाग्छ,
मिहिनेत त टाइम लाग्छ. And I think that's where the things happen. I think young people, I would not say they lack in hard work. I think they lack in perseverance. So there are a lot of young people who I know are very hardworking, but they're not willing to wait 2 years just to see how their thing will work out. So because we come from a culture that is very unstructured, that is to say कि भइहाल्छ नि लाइक एक महिनापछि गरौँ ल भोलि गरौँ त्यो it's a very different, it's a very lazy culture I would say. त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि पनि एउटा रिजन चाहिँ हो. अर्को चाहिँ
टाइम दिनुपर्छ भनेर धेरै अनि त्यो विदेश गए पनि छिट्टै कमाउँछ भनेर
लाइक इन्स्टेन्ट ग्रेटिफिकेसन राइट. लाइक ओ मैले गरेँ भोलिपल्टदेखि नै आई निड टु बी अर्निङ 20,000-30,000 अ मन्थ. दे विल बी लाइक ओ म बाहिर गयो भनेदेखि आई अर्न $10,000 अ मन्थ. लाइक म नेपालमा बसेर 15,000 के खाएर कमाएर बस्नु. There is truth to that. I'm not saying it's not. And again, it comes down to your privilege, right? If you come from a well enough family and you feel like you can do something here, why not? But then I'm empathetic towards people who actually have to live that life, who have to be like, oh, I have to go abroad and earn money because I cannot sustain my family. Very true. But it just comes down to your level of privilege and life ma kaha chho भन्ने बेसिसमा पनि. It just so happens that our entire model of life is pretty opposite. Like if you spend your 20s trying to take a lot of risks, and trying to do a lot of things that you actually love, you'll be far better off than if you ever thought about it in your 30s. Because even if you waste like 6 years of your life trying to do something that is wrong, like, I hope this doesn't happen, but let's say this podcast doesn't work, but you're still having fun with it, right? At the end of the day, even after 6 years, you're going to learn something very, very, very valuable, and that's going to help you propel your next phase in life at some point. But I think we lack the long-term thinking. We're very short. So we're very we're very short-sighted in our own sort of growth. We don't think 5-6 years down the line. We think, oh, what's going to happen next month? Someone knows in mobile. Because what I've realized, like 3 years is a very, very, very long time, apparently. Like the amount of things that I have been able to do in the last 3 years, looking back at it, I've done a lot of stuff. And the only reason, I burned myself out a lot as well. There's been a lot of, like, I haven't had a good balance between life and work. I've overworked a lot. But I've enjoyed it. At the same time, I would say it's not for the lack of opportunities. I think it's just that we just don't want to spend time seeing through kunai kuraharu. We just want to quickly get something.
खोइ मैले त्यही धेरैसँग मैले पोडकास्ट पनि गरेँ क्या लाइक सबै कुरा म लाइक होटेल म्यानेजमेन्टको यो एउटा रेस्टुरेन्टको ठुलो रेस्टुरेन्टको होइन म्यानेजरसँग कुरा गरेँ उहाँ पनि भन्छ अपर्च्युनिटी बबाल छ भन्छ लाइक सबै ठाउँमा म्याक्सिमम जोसँग कुरा गर्दा सबै ठाउँमा छ
एफर्ट लाउनुपर्छ बिकज यु निड टु बी नोटिस्ड बाई पिपल निड टु फिल कि ओ दिस किड इज स्किल्ड वी निड टु हायर देम यु हेभ टु understand how would you differentiate yourself from others. Like मेरो केसमा it was public speaking. That is, I would say, is the differentiator. I would say critical thinking and the things that I learned in the last 2 years are my differentiator. Other than that, I'm just a smart mouth idiot who knows how to do, like, talk a lot. But that's why people noticed me. That's why people think I'm a bit different and they want to hire me. But it was not a month-long effort. It was 2 to 3 years of effort put into my personality.
3 years मात्र होइन नि हजुरको त
right so
like engineering देखि लिएर like हजुरको सबैले इफेक्ट गरे हो नि एक हिसाबले भन्ने हो भने
exactly true right अनि त्यो ब्याक एन्डमा हेर्दाखेरि
25 years को नि तपाईको फ्यामिलीले हैन सबै कुरा हुन जस्तो लाग्छ यो चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ
हैन that's very true I totally agree on that
25 years को तपाईको मिनट हो यहाँसम्म पुग्नुको एउटा एक हिसाबले
it helps and I have not say I'm successful in a sense कि I don't care about success all that much. I think it's a fancy term. You can call anything a success. At the end of the day, the only question you need to ask yourself is, do you actually like what you're doing? And if your answer to that question is like, I don't know, then you have to figure out an exit strategy at some point. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm not that kind of an idiot. I think you should have some cushion. I'm very financially conscious as well. I'm trying to be a bit realistic. You have to save up money. You have to be financially free to maybe able to sustain your life for the next 6 months. But then you have to figure out an exit strategy. You'll be like, okay, I'm not sure if I like doing this, but what do I like? If you don't have the question of what do you like, then start searching for it. And if you find out what you like, then you have to figure out how do you get into that space. So let's say you're working in a tech, all of a sudden you realize you love drama. The only way you're going to realize you love drama is if you go into theater.
Explore.
You start exploring, right? And let's say 5 months in, you're struggling, but you're enjoying it. You're loving it. You're a terrible actor, but you love the process. You keep putting in the effort. You'll find people in that network. You'll find people who will help you. It's very interesting that when you're trying to do the right thing and you're putting a lot of effort, people will notice you and they'll try and help you.
After network bande jन्छ
right? So after network bonds. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, looking at it 6 months, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, maybe you'll grow slower than other people. And over a period of time, you become somewhat of a good actor and people will start giving you roles. And it's a domino effect of thing. Like whenever you see about your progress in a curve, it's not a linear thing. It's a very exponential curve. With a lot of ups and downs, yes, but the way that you think about it is like the initial phase is very, 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 very slow. You almost feel like you're making no progress.
So compound effect.
Yeah, so it compound effect shoots up at a certain point in time. मेरो केसमा I worked almost voluntarily for 2 years trying to look at 20 different things, trying to figure out.
तर तपाईँलाई मजा आइरहेको थियो नि त
मलाई मजा आइरहेको थियो, right? अनि I felt like, oh, I'm not going anywhere, but that was not stopping me because I was having fun. And at some point, someone noticed me, a funder noticed me, a bunch of other people noticed me. Someone sort of noticed me. I was like, bro, there's this project that a bunch of people are trying to do at Karkhana. Would you be interested in trying to work? I'm like, yes. Right, and that's how the opportunity presented itself. And then
right time लिनु पनि पर्छ.
Right, and then 3-4 months of working there, and I didn't know what I was doing. All of a sudden, I'm thrown into this place where my founder tells me, "Get me 3,000 children per week by the end of December." We are in September. I'm like, okay, somehow figured it out, and now my career has taken an exponential jump, and it took almost 4 years to get to that point. And it was very, very, very small, gradual.
थोरै हैन.
Yeah, very small, gradual.
त्यही मान्छे यस्तो पनि एउटा थट्स आएको थियो मलाई हैन, यो के हुन्छ भन्दै हामी सक्सेस पाउने के चीजमा पाउँछ थाहा छैन रे. फेरि हामी के चीजमा त्यही लाइक त्यो हामीलाई थाहा छैन कि त्यसलाई कसरी थाहा पाउने भन्दाखेरि त्यही.
It's very interesting. So I think a lot of people will just attach success with money. I think that's a terrible metric. The way that I like to think about money is it's a byproduct of the amount of effort that you're putting into something. So it's the same thing with any compounding effect, right? At first, you'll not have money. At first, you'll not have money. At first, you'll not have money. Like, let's say you work at this podcast for the next 2 years. And after 2 years of hard effort, you maybe create a group of 1,000 people. I hope you grow more.
100 people मात्र भयो भने ठुलो हो.
Right? But at some point, there'll be brands who will try to sponsor you because they want to get into your podcast. So that's how things work, right? But it's a very long... It's a marathon. It's a very long process. It's a very marathon. Like, and first, you might make a very terrible deal with a sponsor. You might give them something. So you'll make a lot of mistakes in that as well. And it's pretty natural for us to do that. But it's a very long marathon that you have to keep working at. And weird thing is, it's a byproduct. The amount of money that you'll make is the amount of effort that you'll put into something. So for me, I don't earn as much as, let's say, a business development consultant working in a tech firm. But if that person is working 13 hours a week, earning 1 lakh a month, and they are hating their job, I'm quite happy in my place. I just simply don't care how much money. Like, this is not me being arrogant in a sense ki, oh, I don't care about money, I have a lot of it. I don't. But it's me just reorienting my thought process to think about things differently. So money is important. It gives you financial freedom. It gives you space to think. But if you make that your primary fuel to do something, you're going to struggle at a certain point in time. And I know it sounds a bit weird given like I'm 26 and I'm talking about a 50-year-old. At the age when you're 50, you'll hate your life because you'll soon realize like, oh, bloody hell, I have all this house and money and all of this. But then you'll start counting your life on the basis of, okay, how many friends did I have? Okay, how many experiences did I have? How many things did I learn? How many memories did I make? Did I do something meaningful? So all of these things are going to matter more and more and more as you go old. And this is not me like thinking, oh, I know what a 50-year-old thinks. This is because I have a bunch of people as mentors who are at that age. And I get a very similar feeling. My founder is about 60, 65. He's like a little child. I took him to Shivapuriko tyo Vishnudarko Khola. It's like gets in, half pant, takes his shirt off, goes into the zarna. And this is like dancing like a little child. And he's a 65-year-old. That person is having the most joyous moments of his life. And he is very, very rich. He doesn't have to do that. He can buy a Ferrari and just spend the rest of his life in an island somewhere. But he chooses to work more than 12 to 13 hours a day trying to solve very big problems in the world, like ours in terms of Hasdai Kheldai, because he really has fun with those things. And for him, yes, he has a lot of money, but I can be very sure that it's not something that is motivating him, right? He has probably by this point spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in this project alone. And he has gotten nothing out of it other than just pure joy, other than seeing children smile, other than seeing team members grow, other than making sure that this family, whatever it is in Hasdai Kheldai, is sustaining. And that's where he gets his joy out of. And I get this very weird question in schools like, why? why the hell are you doing this? Are you trying to sell us on something? Like, के हामीलाई पछि के फ्रिमियममा लाने हो, लाइक अहिले त्यसरी त्यहाँ बेचेर पछि चाहिँ डिपेन्डेन्ट बनाउने अनि पैसा माग्ने. लाइक नो, द्याट्स नट आवर इन्टेन्सन. इट्स लाइक, and why is your funder giving you so much money to do this? It's like, he just wants to do something good. And for people, they're like, but why? He might have his own selfish reasons. I'm not saying there might not be. But whenever I meet him, whenever he is going into a school session, all of his effort is gone into helping us. He has helped us, teaching us very basic skills, like how do you plan? It's a very basic thing, but it's a very difficult thing for people to learn. I would say 70-80% of, like I would say 90% of the youngsters in Nepal, no idea how to plan. The way that I know this, 90% of the people that come into my organization, like 1 out of 10 people actually understand what planning is. Up until now, I've maybe found like a couple.
Like, explain गरिदिनु त.
So there are a lot of things, right?
How to like planning चाहिँ कसरी गर्दा ठिक हुन्छ होला. थोरै explain गरिदिनु त.
It's not a one shoe fits all model, right? But I think the way that you plan things out is, एउटा चाहिँ, one, when is the action actually happening? So you plan something. Let's say you want to make a podcast. If you say, oh, I'm going to make a podcast in a month, you're like, no. When are you exactly going to shoot your first episode? And with whom? At what time? In what location? So SMART goals, basically, right? So that's one. Then you need to have a very clear goal. That is to say, okay, what are you trying to get out of this? And I think that's where we struggle a lot. It's like, oh, I want to open up a business. Why? What's the outcome? And they'll give you a bunch of things. It's like, okay, I want to open up a restaurant because I want to earn a lot of money. Okay, yes. If that's the outcome, fine. But many people will be like, oh, but I'm serving people. I want to make the best restaurant ever. But then what's the outcome that you're trying to get, right? So having that clarity of this is why I want to do this. So for example, for us, we'll be like, okay, we want to play a Jenga with kids. We are very task oriented. Like, okay, bacharsa Jenga khelyo, sakyo. Why do you want to play Jenga? Why not? Why do you want to play this game instead of any other game? Why is this game so valuable? Why is this important? So, and then a lot of the time when you have meetings, you'll be say, okay, we discuss this, and this. It's like, okay, fine. What was the outcome of those meetings? What are the things that you said you would do? What are the to do? So, as I said, like we do a lot of non-action planning. That is, yo kuraharu garne, but we don't become specific. Yeah? Like yo time ma yo esari garchu. And I think that is where we lack a lot. So we will be like, oh, we'll do these many events, but they're very less. When are you doing the events? At least we're so afraid to estimate even. Yeah? And you can be wrong with this. You might like, okay, I want to do a mela in this palika at certain point in time, let's say on a month of June. That's an estimation. You might end up doing that in July, but at least you have something in your head to think towards, right? And the beauty of that is, even if you fail at that point, now you're like, okay, I wanted to do that thing in June. I planned for it. I did everything, but it didn't work out. Why did it not work out? So now you have a refining metric. You want to make a podcast. You might say, okay, by the end of July, I want to get to 1,000 subscribers. And these are the steps that I'm going to take those 1,000 subscribers. So the outcome for you will be, why are you doing this podcast? It might be many things, and all of those are valid. It might be, okay, one, I want to be very popular. That could be one. And it's a very valid reason. You might be, no, I want to do this podcast because I want to share other people's stories. Okay, but why do you want to do that? You have to go very deep into an understanding of what is it that motivates you to do something, right? And once you have a very good reason, planning becomes a lot more easy because you have clarity on this is what you want to achieve by this amount of time. This is how you get it. And that plan will almost always fail, right? And then, but let's say you wanted to get to 1,000 subscribers, you got to 900, pretty close. But if you wanted to reach 1,000 subscribers, but you only reached 500, where did you go wrong? How can you now improve it? Having an estimation is very important to planning. Having very concrete things, to-dos, like knowing exactly what you want to do is very important in planning. So there are different aspects to it. Again, it's not a one-shoe-fits-all approach, but the way that I think about it is twofold. have very concrete, म यो टाइममा यसरी गर्छु, basic the SMART framework, specific, manageable, attainable, whatever it might be, use that. The next would be then asking yourself, why are you doing it this way? Why not do it some other way? And then as fast as you can, try or implement, fail at it, learn from it, refine it, and keep repeating the process. So that is what I would say is a good planning.
Good planning चाहिँ गर्दा चाहिँ बेस्ट हुन्छ. तर त्यसरी गर्ने नै गर्दा नै राम्रो खासमा चाहिँ, लाइक लङ टर्मसम्म जानको लागि चाहिँ. नभए त प्लानिङ बनाउँछ क्विट हुन्छ छिटै.
Yeah, exactly, right? So
धेरै जसो प्लानिङहरू
त्यो म्यानेजेबल पनि हुनु पर्यो क्या. जस्तै कि इफ यु से कि by the end of this year I want to reach 1 million subscribers, might be an insane and ambitious plan. You might fail at it.
प्लानिङ चाहिँ अलिकति अर्कै हुन जान्छ होइन. यो खासमा यस्तो यसमा चाहिँ योगी भन्नु होइन.
So you have to think about,
subscriberकोमा चाहिँ,
so what's going to take like how much effort is it going to go into? Then you have to think about, okay, can I scale the process down? Can I say, okay, by the end of year I want to get to 1,000 subscribers and that's it. If I reach that, it's not that you don't want to push it, but that becomes a metric, that becomes your goal. Whatever it might be that your objectives are a bit different. You might be, no, I don't care about 1,000 subscribers. By the end of this year, I want to create 40 videos with these many people. That could be a metric. That's another thing. You can be, okay, no, I want to do 12 videos, but I want to do 12 really good videos. I'm going to post once a month. So very specific goal. It could be anything, but you always need something to aim at. The planning that I feel like a lot of people, like young people will do, is they'll be like, I want to pass a bunch, like I want to go abroad. It's like, okay, why? Why do you want to go abroad? And they're like, oh, I want to earn a lot of money. But why can't you do that in Nepal? It's like, oh, but I earn a lot of money abroad. It's like, fine, but what are you going to do with that money? So the more questions you ask, at some point they're going to be very confused. But having that clarity of thought, why you're doing it, it's a very cliche stuff that Simon Sinek has been saying for a very long time, right? Like start with why. You do need to have that clarified.
Why थाहा भएपछि केही भन्नै पर्दैन.
Everything becomes easy, right?
सबै कुरा आफै थाहा हुन्छ. लाइक मान्छेलाई के गर्ने लाइफमा, लाइक हजुरलाई पनि एक हिसाबले थाहा पाउनु भयो, थाहा पाएकै भन्नुपर्छ एक हिसाबले.
Because मेरो केसमा my deep internal motivation comes in. So there are always a good side and a dark side. For me, the good side is I've always loved helping people. I really want to help a lot of people grow. Either it is as leaders. I'm not saying I'm a fantastic leader, but I think at this point I have enough experience to help others. Like enough things in my head. I've read enough to sort of help others grow. So that's my primary motivation. The reason for why I'm working in Hasdai Kheldai. Yes, I care about children. Yes, I want this project to succeed. But my internal motivation comes from helping my team, help children, and not directly the children. It's a very different thing, right? Because my internal sense of motivation comes from how can I help a bunch of these people that I'm working with grow into leaders someday. And the dark side of it is I know at some point my relationship with them is going to be strong enough that all of them are going to be in very good places where I'll get to engage them on, right? So from a networking perspective, it's a very, very impactful. I would say on a different scale, if I have to go very dark, I would say I really love the feeling of being able to impact the lives of others in a meaningful way. So that's dark because I'm doing it for very selfish reasons, that because of me, because of the things that I did or I talked about, it's sort of helping, or at least it's changing the trajectory of life, that I have some amount of control into the lives of others. So that gives me a deep sense of fulfillment, and I try to be very careful to not be malicious about it. I've never been malicious about it because it comes from a genuine interest to help. But I know if I go very dark, that sense of control on being able to sort of shift the trajectory of someone's life, it is deeply satisfying and motivating.
हजुरहरूले चाहिँ है कलेज पनि म्यानेज गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ अनि हाँस्दै खेल्दैलाई पनि मैले समयदालाई पनि सोधेको थिएँ कसरी म्यानेज चाहिँ कसरी लाइक कस्तो टफ हुँदैन र तर उहाँले त भन्नुभएको थियो लाइक हजुरको पनि लाइक मोर्निङ मात्र हो.
So
कलेज चाहिँ
Yeah, so that helps. तर मेरो केसमा चाहिँ I've always so I have a very different way of looking at stress. I think a lot of people, when they get stressful, they will get anxious and they will just collapse. Right now, I have 2 long assignments that I have to finish. Tomorrow has a deadline. I have a class on Friday. I have a class that I'm taking on Friday. I have a class that I'm taking on Saturday. There's next class that is happening on Monday and Thursday. So just to give you a bit of context. So right now I'm juggling like 3 public speaking classes that I'm taking in 3 different organizations. Plus Hasdai Kheldai अनि plus college. And this goes so that's with assignments, right? And I'm not I struggle just as much as the other person. The way that I like to view stress is I do get burdened by it. I'm not invincible, but I do think either through my father's gene or whatever it might be, it gets difficult, but I'm good at managing it. So there are 2 things I do. One is a very simple tool. I use Todoist, basic tool to just keep anything that is in my thought in that. And that will go directly to my calendar. So I use a lot of calendar. Everything is planned out. I try to plan every week what my week sort of looks like. So I'll try and block times out where I can do certain things. So that's one way that I manage. Yeah, exactly. So the way that it helps me is I can know, okay, your week to you, just say your podcast is like, okay, it's probably 12 to 3 or 12 to 4. So I have a time block there. So then after 5, I'll do something else. And that helps me because I don't have to be stressed about, time center. Because I know there is time because I've blocked out times accordingly. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday is probably free. I'll do something else. I'll have a meeting with someone else. So that's how I sort of block out in calendars. The next way I do think is a perspective thing. So मेरो केसमा चाहिँ the way that I look at stress is I look at it in a very positive way. I try to see it in a way that it's helping my growth. So I'm doing 3 public speaking classes I live with children. The way that I like to think about it is, yes, it's very stressful. एउटा केसमा I have to travel to Tapasi, अर्कोमा Tapakil, and then one is online.
Distance पनि रहेछ त नि.
Distance पनि धेरै छ, and then I live in Maiddevi, right? But I think it's still going to be valuable because regardless how stressful it is going to be, at the end of it all, I'm going to learn something very fantastic because in 3 places I'm going to test my curriculum. I'm going to be engaging with actual real life children. It will not just be a curriculum in my head, but actually something being experimenting and tried with children. So that means at the end of the day, I built out a curriculum in a faster timeline. So yes, 2 months of stress, but then look at what I've achieved. So I try to see things in a positive sense. For me, stressors, even if I'm like about to collapse, I feel that's still valuable in a sense. It helps earning. There are a lot of stress management techniques that I like to use. Sometimes I'll just listen to music. I used to draw a lot. I used to sing a lot. That used to help. I'll just sit silently, meditate. That helps. So you have to use stress management techniques to help with that. Many people do call me insane. My girlfriend calls me insane. even though she'll go alongside with all of my bullshit and whatever I'm doing, she'll still I know she is proud of me. She does scold me a lot for all of the things that I'm taking on, but she understands that that's the most important thing. And then that support really helps. So there are a lot of stress management happening from there as well. That it does help, but managing a lot of different things, it just comes down to basic, very simple cheese. So yeah, I think a lot of time we get stressed because हाम्रो दिमागमा धेरै कुराहरू राख्छौँ नि त. We just like use it. If you use the technology effectively, you have to-dos where you can just keep, like if I have to follow up with someone, I'll just keep it in a to-do so that I don't have to keep remembering it in my head. The reason for, I think, a lot of the time we have stress is because I have to go to that meeting, and everyone is just keeping it in their head, right? So 2 baje मलाई यहाँ पुग्छ, 3 baje, just keep it on a bloody to-do list. It helps out because like, 2 baje छ, I have 1 hour time, I can chill, I can have a cup of coffee, and then I can travel, right? Everything is planned out.
त्यो सिम्पल तरिकाले गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ भने सही हो नि, बवाल हो नि त अहिले गर्नुभएको चाहिँ.
And not to say there is no stress, there is a ton of stress, that it gets managed somehow.
Like manage चाहिँ just गर्दै हुनुहुन्छ हैन.
So some days I'll just collapse and it's like, oh, I'll whine with my girlfriend saying, oh, I'm really stressed. And she'll scold me and then everything will get okay. But it does help.
सही हो यहाँ तपाईँसँग साँच्ची भन्नु होला है लाइक धेरै कुरा थाहा पाएँ आजको दिनमा चाहिँ
I'm glad.
हुन्छ यो हाम्रो पोडकास्ट के एन्ड गरिदिने हो ल
हुन्छ,
लाइक
हुन्छ,
लगभग अलमोस्ट है मैले धेरै
Yeah,
कुरा
I think so too. But if there is something at the end you want to still ask me.
तपाईँले चाहिँ के लाइक खासै छैन मैले त लगभग अलमोस्ट मलाई एनजिओको बारेमा लाइक हजुरको बारेमा स्टोरी थाहा पाउनु थियो
Okay.
त्यो खोइ के कसो चाहिँ मेरो कतिको हजुरलाई मन पर्यो होइन
So alikati final promotion say we do take volunteers.
ए भन्दा हुन्छ प्रब्लम छैन
Right, so if you're interested, if you ever get around to seeing this podcast, if you think you want to do something meaningful and want to actually impact real life children, basically impacting the next generation, do contact us in our social media page, Hasdai Kheldai, anywhere. We do have a website if you want to know more. That would be one thing. Yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of. It's a lovely organization, lovely team. It'll grow a lot. Yeah.
खै केही अब लाइक हामी पनि आउनु पोला जस्तो फिल भइरहेको
Sure, I would love to invite you. Like even if you're coming in like एउटा session man, just to come and observe. कहाँ बस्छौ तिमी?
ए म इमाडोलमा बस्ने त
Okay, great. So we already have schools there. So do text me. I'll get you to one of the school sessions. It's practically it runs 5 days a week. Just go observe के हुन्छ actually भनेर. And see what we do with children. It'll help you.
होइन म स्योर आउँछु 100% म चाहिँ
It will actually be very, very nice. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of like, it's a lovely, I really love this project. It's something that is very deeply mine. I may not have started it, but at this point, it's practically my NGO. My NGO and someone else. I think even within the team, you will find a deep sense of ownership in what they do. And that's I'm very happy to see that. Like just as I say, this is my project, most of the people in my team will say that it's their project. And that really helps.
खै कस्तो हजुरलाई कस्तो लाइक कन्भर्सेसन
Oh, this is nice.
थ्याङ्क यू लाइक कन्भर्सेसन चाहिँ यो त अब यस्तै हो लाइक म नि मेरो पनि खासै छैन कि लाइक कन्भर्सेसनै हो भनेर एउटा लाइक यो हुन्छ यस्तै हो कन्भर्सेसन हुन्छ फोन गरिदिनु है
Okay.